Chapter 250. In order to form a special force, other than the selection of soldiers and the construction of the training base, there was another topic that needed to be tackled, and that was the innovation of weapons and equipment. They had to be equipped with backpacks, water bottles, ropes, military shoes, first aid kits, military shovels, and other auxiliary supplies, in addition to the gold sore medicine, military rations pills, and military tents that Shanghai County already had. Other than armor, Tang's saber, God's crossbow, and green beetle horse, they also needed to develop military daggers. Therefore, the formation of a special force was a comprehensive project. If it was successful, it would be a comprehensive upgrade for the Shanghai County Army, officially embarking on the fast track of elite soldiers. Ouyang Shua's idea of elite soldiers had not been implemented. Due to the need of territorial defense, the number of territorial troops had been fluctuating around the danger line of 1 in 10. Under the guidance of Ouyang Shua's idea of professionalizing the army, the increasing size of the army brought a huge financial burden. At the same time, a large number of young laborers joining the army was detrimental to the territory's economic development. Ouyang Shua's goal was to control the number of troops to 1 in 15, or even 1 in 20. Gaia's first year, October 20th, in the western suburbs of Shanghai County. In 4 days, the construction division set up a temporary military camp in the western suburbs. 3,250 participating soldiers, together with the instructors, had already entered the military camp. The instructors, with Viper and Cobra as the captains and vice-captains, would conduct the first round of elimination of the participating soldiers. To select a special force soldier, physical fitness was the foundation. In modern military selection, physical fitness subjects included 5-kilometer weight-bearing runs, parallel bars, 400-meter steeplechase, push-ups, and other contents. These subjects were very unfamiliar to the soldiers. Therefore, the instructors did not start the selection immediately, but carried out adaptive training instead. Using this opportunity, the instructors could also understand the physical fitness of the soldiers and formulate the elimination criteria that met the ancient requirement. According to Ouyang Shua's additional requirements, in addition to adaptive training, the instructors would also conduct more basic training, including formation training, emergency assembly, housekeeping, and other recruit training subjects. In fact, the temporary military camp in the western suburbs bore the responsibility of a recruit camp. Not only did Ouyang Shua want to form a special force, but he also wanted to integrate modern military training methods into the Shanghai County Army to improve their discipline and science. Previously, Ouyang Shua's military drill was the embodiment of this idea. Unfortunately, Ouyang Shua was a layman and could not practice what he preached, so the effect was not good. The arrival of the teaching team was an opportunity. Even if the soldiers who participated in the recruit camp were eliminated in the end and did not make it to the special forces, they could still bring the training subjects they learned in the recruit camp back to their respective units and promote them to the entire army. According to Ouyang Shua's request, each brigade had to send at least 1 battalion commander and at least 5 platoon leaders to participate in the training. They would become the backbone of this training, and they would also be the backbone of the new recruits training in the future and would be the backbone of the entire army. Because the officers and soldiers participating in the training were the elites of the army, Ouyang Shua and the instructors agreed to set the training time for the recruits to be 1 month. 1 month later, the first round of the elimination test would officially begin. On the day that the new recruit camp was established, Ouyang Shua personally came to the camp and strictly enforced discipline. He demanded that all the officers and soldiers strictly follow the instructions of the instructors and that no one was allowed to cause trouble. Otherwise, they would be punished according to military law. After that, Ouyang Shua focused his attention on preparing for the battle on Moon Island. During this time, there was also a small incident. Song Jia suddenly returned to the Marquis mansion. She found Ouyang Shua and said, Wui, I want to recommend someone to you. Who is it? He actually invited our sect leader Song to come down the mountain in person. Ouyang Shua joked. Song Jia hit him and said coquettishly, "Stupid blockhead, I helped you out of kindness and you still teased me? Okay. Tell me, who is it?" Ouyang Shua raised his hands in surrender. A few days ago, Tan Xiaoli and Meng Feifei came, and I accepted them into the Eastern Fence Sword faction. After they settled down, they also brought their families to the territory. Guess what? Meng Feifei's father is called Meng Jida. This person is not simple at all. In reality, he has always been a senior manager of the Jiaozhou Bank. When I heard that he should be a financial talent that you urgently need, I specially came down the mountain to tell you about it, Song Jia explained. As the Bank of the Four Seas grew stronger, Ouyang Shua had always wanted to find a real talent to take over the Bank of the Four Seas. He wanted to end the current extensive operation of the Bank of the Four Seas and develop it in the direction of fine management. There were financial experts in the expert group that settled in Shanghai County, but they were only engaged in theoretical research. Basically, they had no experience working in banks or other financial institutions. The Song family did have such a talent, but in order to avoid arousing suspicion, both Song Jia and Ouyang Shua consciously avoided this topic. They had never thought of asking the Song family for help. This matter gradually became a sore point for Ouyang Shua, and Song Jia was very clear about it. Therefore, after learning about the origin of Meng Feifei's father, she hurriedly went down the mountain. Ouyang Shua nodded with gratification and said with a smile, "Madam knows me best." "You're talking nonsense again." Song Jia was a little helpless, but she couldn't conceal the happiness in her eyes. Undoubtedly, Song Jia was very happy to be able to help Ouyang Shua. After Song Jia returned to the sect, Ouyang Shua found someone to invite Meng Jida to the Marquis mansion. Meng Jida was a little surprised by Ouyang Shua's invitation. Although he knew that the Lord of Shanghai County was his daughter's junior high school classmate, he had never thought of finding a job there. He was prepared to retire in Shanghai County. Ouyang Shua received Meng Jida in the side hall. Meng Jida was 45 years old. He was in the prime of his life. Being an elite for a long time had formed his unique temperament and charisma. He was calm and passionate, and his character was firm and refined. It was the first time they met, but Ouyang Shua had a good impression of this all-powerful bank elite. He smiled and said, "Uncle Meng, are you used to living in Shanghai County? Please forgive me if I'm not a good host." Ouyang Shua usually didn't put on airs in front of players. Moreover, Meng Jida was Meng Feifei's father, so he could be considered his elder. Meng Jida looked at the young man in front of him and felt a little emotional. This person was the same age as his daughter, but their achievements were like heaven and earth. At such a young age, without any background, he was able to stir up the storm in the game and become the overlord of a region. He was really a young hero. It was inevitable that a young man with such achievements would be arrogant. What was rare was that this person was not arrogant at all. He was humble and polite, which was really amazing. Meng Jida smiled and said, "Nephew, don't say that. It's all thanks to you guys taking care of Feifei." The two of them started chatting. Other than talking about life, Ouyang Shua would occasionally ask for Meng Jida's opinion on some economic issues in the territory, especially the operation of the bank. As they chatted, Ouyang Shua realized that Meng Jida was indeed not simple. He had his own unique views on economic issues, which often made Ouyang Shua's eyes light up. He felt enlightened and benefited a lot. Without hesitation, Ouyang Shua made up his mind and said, "I would like to invite Uncle to take charge of the Bank of the Four Seas. I wonder if Uncle is willing to accept this position?" Meng Jida was shocked. He had a hunch that Ouyang Shua wanted to recruit him to work in the government department. However, he never expected that Ouyang Shua would entrust him with such an important task. Although he had just arrived in Shanghai County, Meng Jida already had some understanding of the Bank of the Four Seas in Shanhai County due to his professional habit. In addition, when they were chatting, Ouyang Shuo had intentionally or unintentionally revealed some information, which made him realize the importance of the Bank of the Four Seas in the system of Shanhai County. Meng Jida didn't know how to judge such an important task given to someone he had only met for the first time. It was hard to say whether it was willful, frivolous, or ambitious. As far as Meng Jida was concerned, being able to take charge of the Bank of the Four Seas was far better than retiring in Shanhai County. As an experienced banker, it was undoubtedly very interesting to be able to take charge of an ancient bank and inject modern management concepts into it. Needless to say, taking charge of the Bank of the Four Seas would not only help improve the living conditions of his family in the game, but it would also be extremely beneficial to the final evaluation of his achievement points. Meng Jida took a deep look at Ouyang Shuo and calmly said, "I am indebted to nephew's appreciation, I dare not decline." Then he stood up and bowed to Ouyang Shuo. "This humble subject greets Marquis." This bow signified the difference between a ruler and a subject. Ouyang Shuo panicked and quickly got up to avoid it. He said, "Uncle, why do you have to do this?" Meng Jida shook his head and said stubbornly, "Since I have already accepted the task, I am naturally a subordinate. The rules cannot be broken." He bowed again with a firm attitude. Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to turn his body sideways and accept it. Meng Jida was the first player to hold an important position in the government system of Shanhai County. It was a landmark. Previously, the members of the team of experts had only served as consultants, which was completely different from Meng Jida. Of course, Meng Jida knew what kind of impact it would have on other players if he was put in an important position. It was precisely because of this that he had to abide by the rules of a subject and protect Ouyang Shuo's authority as the Marquis of Lianzhou. If he used his status as an elder to break the rules of the government, he would definitely be ostracized by his colleagues, and it would be difficult for him to integrate into the government of Shanhai County. As time passed, even if Ouyang Shuo was unwilling, he would have no choice but to remove him from his position. Ouyang Shuo was also well aware that the current situation was no longer something that could be changed by his will. While he was building the government system, he would also be bound by it. He would have to follow the rules of the government and wouldn't be able to do as he pleased. All of this was originally hazy, but now it was torn apart by Meng Jida. What Ouyang Shuo didn't know was that the manager of the Bank of the Four Seas that he had appointed today would bring the Bank of the Four Seas to a new height in the future. To be continued. Chapter 251. On October 22nd, Ouyang Shuo returned to Beihai County. On this trip, Ouyang Shuo didn't have any personal guards by his side. The only person accompanying him was the Chief of Military Affairs, Go Hongliang. At the North Sea port, the North Sea Fleet was ready to set off. All of the Mengchong battleships had been modified. Ouyang Shuo took out bags of rations from his interspatial pouch and distributed them to each warship. The sailors loaded the warship with barrels of fresh water, bundles of arrows, and barrels of fierce kerosene. The sails of the warships were raised one after another, along with the flags of Shanhai County and the North Sea Fleet. The flag of the North Sea Fleet, which was also the flag of the Shanhai County Navy, was replaced by a 5-story battleship with a huge blue dragon hovering above it. Before setting off, Ouyang Shuo led all the officers and soldiers to worship Mazu, praying to Mazu to protect the voyage. After the sacrificial ceremony, the fleet formed an attack formation and officially set off from the port. Due to the lack of a main battleship like a fortress ship, the North Sea Fleet didn't have a flagship for the time being. They could only temporarily choose a Mengchong battleship as the command ship, and it was situated at the center of the fleet. Accompanied by Pei Donglai, Ouyang Shuo boarded the command ship. Before they departed, Ouyang Shuo had already declared that Pei Dong would be in charge of commanding this battle, and he wouldn't interfere. The Mengchong battleship was powered by oars. The side of the ship was equipped with a parapet wall that was half a person's height. There were paddle holes under the two bulwarks, with 12 oars on each side. The sailors rowed on the deck. Above the deck, there were 3 levels of cabins. 5 feet inside the ship was a canopy, the height of which was as high as the parapet wall. The canopy was surrounded by parapet walls. Banners and ivory flags were planted, and golden drums were placed to command the advance and retreat of attack and defense. Ouyang Shuo walked up to the deck and climbed to the roof of the cabin on the first floor, arriving at the command seat. Pei Donglai waved the flag, and the drummers received the order to beat the war drums. Amidst the beating of the war drums, the warship rode the wind and broke the waves as it sailed into the sea. Yue Island was about 500 nautical miles away from the North Sea port, which was equivalent to 925 kilometers. The basic speed of the Mengchong battleship was 14 knots, or 14 nautical miles per hour. When the wind was strong, it could reach 20 knots. When a warship sailed on the sea, there was no distinction between day and night. It was just that its speed would be slower at night. Under normal circumstances, Mengchong's battleship could sail 300 nautical miles in a day. Therefore, it took less than 2 days to travel from North Sea port to Moon Island. Ouyang Shuo stood at the bow of the ship and gazed into the distance. Apart from seawater, there was only seawater. It was extremely boring. The sea breeze blew in his face, bringing with it a salty and wet smell. On the deck, the sailors shouted a uniform chant and rowed the oars with all their might. "Marquis, go back to the cabin and rest," Pei Donglai said. Ouyang Shuo nodded, then returned to his room and started cultivating in seclusion. At night, the sea suddenly blew up. Mazu temples, sea god's protection, came into play at this time. Mengchong's warship was as steady as Mount Tai amidst the waves, speeding up towards Moon Island. Early the next morning, Ouyang Shuo walked out of his room. An orange-red sun slowly rose from the horizon. The sunlight shone on the surface of the sea, sparkling. Thanks to the help of the sea breeze last night, the voyage was exceptionally smooth. According to Pei Donglai's estimation, they would be able to reach the vicinity of Moon Island by noon at the latest. The Navy soldiers all got out of bed. After a simple wash, they drank the fresh water they had brought and ate a military ration pill to ensure that they would have enough energy for the day. While there was still time, the experienced soldiers began to clean their weapons, and the archers began to adjust their bows. The lookout stood at the highest point of the cabin, observing the movements on the surface of the sea. The fierce fire oil and arrows were moved to the deck, and the soldiers took their positions, ready to fight at any time. Near noon, a small island in the distance appeared in the vision of the lookout. The lookout did not dare to be negligent. He waved the flag and signaled the drummers to sound the drums. Pei Donglai's spirit was shaken. He ordered them to form an attack formation and advance at full speed. When the North Sea Fleet suddenly appeared outside of Moon Island, one could imagine how shocked the Black Shark pirates were. Fortunately, they did not go out to plunder today, and all of their members were on the island. When the leader of the Black Shark pirates, Blackbeard, received the report, he immediately ordered his subordinates to assemble and board the ship to face the enemy. The small Moon Island immediately became chaotic and busy. When the pirates were not on the move, they were very bored. There were no entertainment facilities on the island, and the only place they could go was the tavern on the island. The shabby tavern was open 24 hours a day, and there was an endless stream of customers. After yesterday's hangover, some of the pirates directly lay on the damp floor of the tavern and slept soundly. Bang! The door of the tavern was violently kicked open. The leader of the small group saw the drunkard lying on the ground. Without saying anything, he ordered someone to bring cold water and directly poured it on him. He shouted loudly, "Motherf *Ker, get up quickly, enemy attack!" The pirate let out a blood-curdling scream. He was still unconscious, and he muttered, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" Seeing the other party's behavior, the small group leader was so angry that he ruthlessly kicked him. He shouted in exasperation, "If you're awake, hurry up and leave with me. Don't act like a girl." The drunkard was kicked in pain, and only then did he wake up. He got up with a grunt and followed behind his captain, walking out of the tavern. As he walked, he did not forget to ask, "Captain, who attacked us? Who cares, just kill him." In fact, the small group leader himself did not know who the enemy was. Yes, he dares to have designs on our black shark pirate. He doesn't want to live anymore. The wine gave people courage, and it was not wrong at all. Such a scene played out everywhere on the island. The small group leaders came out in full force, gathered their subordinates, brought their weapons, and hurriedly gathered at the dock. At the dock, Blackbeard boarded the command ship and listened to the next report from his subordinate. "Great leader, the flag that the enemy raised should be the North Sea county that we have been monitoring." Blackbeard frowned. "How many warships does the enemy have?" 25, all Mengchong warships. The pirate already had some understanding of the North Sea fleet. "They're not friendly." Blackbeard naturally knew the power of the Mengchong warships. "Then what should we do?" "What should we do? Nothing." Blackbeard's face was filled with killing intent. "Prepare to meet the enemy. We can't afford to lose this battle. Tell our brothers, if we don't want our nest to be destroyed, then fight to the death." Blackbeard ordered. Yes. Under Pei Donglai's command, the warships of the North Sea Fleet all spread out, forming a fan and rapidly advancing. No matter how the enemy arranged their formation, they would be caught in the crossfire of the fan. On both sides of the ship, torches were set up. The archers poured fierce flame oil on the arrows and lit them on the torches, immediately turning them into fire arrows. Pei Donglai stared at the enemy warships, and when they entered the firing range, he waved the flag with force. Under his command, the war drums sounded. A wave of arrow rain soared into the sky, bringing with it bursts of fire, flashing across the clear sky. The fire arrows accurately landed on the pirate ships, instantly bringing with them bursts of fire. Blackbeard was shocked, and immediately ordered for the fire to be extinguished. Unfortunately, it was too late. Wave after wave of fire arrows weaved into a fire net, covering the ship from above. Although the pirate ships were fireproof, they could not withstand the continuous fire arrows. When the fire arrows hit the sails immediately burst into flames. When they hit the cabins caught fire. When they hit the deck started to smoke. When they hit the pirates, they could only blame it on their bad luck. The pirates on fire ran up and down the deck in panic. The surrounding pirates avoided them as if they had seen the plague. In the end, the unlucky ones panicked and jumped into the sea, saving their lives. One after another, the warships started to catch fire. Thick smoke rose into the sky. It was a spectacular sight. The pirates were busy putting out the fire, unable to launch a counterattack, and could only speed up their own destruction. In the midst of the fire, the pirates started to jump into the sea to escape. Blackbeard, on the other hand, sat on a small dinghy and struggled to row towards the island. The battle on the sea would collapse in an instant. He could only hope to organize a defense line on the island to defend against the enemy. Pei Donglai knew that although the enemy's warships had been burned, the pirates still had their strength. Most of them were soaking in the sea, trying their best to swim up the island. Pei Donglai made a prompt decision, and ordered to stop firing fire arrows, and to use ordinary arrows. At the same time, the target of the arrows changed from the warships to the pirates in the sea. The archers no longer needed to pour oil on the arrows, and their efficiency immediately doubled. An even denser rain of arrows rained down on the area where the pirate ships were. Because the pirates were soaking in the sea, only half their heads were exposed. The archers had no way to aim, so they simply formed a rain of arrows, launching a large area of destruction. They did not seek to shoot accurately, only to suppress the enemy with firepower. The arrows streaked across the sky, then fell straight into the sea, shooting into the water with the force of thunder, splashing waves. If the waves turned blood-red, it meant that a pirate had been shot. Being shot in the sea, there was almost no chance of survival for a pirate. Once they were shot, even if they were not shot in a vital spot, they would lose their stamina due to the blood loss, and eventually drown in the sea. Streaks of blood floated in the nearby sea. Gradually, the streaks of blood began to converge, and the seawater was gradually dyed bright red. The corpses of the pirates floated on the surface of the sea, recounting the endless desolation. Amidst the soaring flames, the pirate ships let out painful groans as they sank one after another. The sinking of the pirate ships brought about waves and whirlpools. Some of the pirates who were too close to the ships were unfortunately sucked into the whirlpools, and were dragged into the depths of the sea along with the pirate ship. As expected, the battle went smoothly. Once again, the fierce fire oil made a great contribution. When the North Sea Fleet sailed in front of the pirate ships, there were only a few pirate ships that could still float on the surface of the sea. They were all alone, occasionally bringing up a few puffs of thick smoke. Pei Donglai had rich experience in naval warfare, and ordered the warships not to get too close, lest they be overturned by the whirlpools. He ordered the warships to go around the purgatory on the sea, and continued to advance toward Munar Island. When the Mengchong warships sailed past this area of the sea, the pirates who were still struggling in the sea actually cried out for help. Help, the pirates cried out in a pleading voice. As the great general of Shanghai County, Pei Donglai naturally knew the Marquis's consistent policy. Those who could be captured would not be killed, and those who could be persuaded to surrender would not be given up. Therefore, he ordered the pirates to be dragged onto the ships with ropes, and then tied up with ropes. To be continued. Chapter 252. After fishing the pirates onto the ship, Pei Donglai was faced with a difficult problem. Blackbeard had already gathered the remnants of his troops, a total of more than 1,000 people. How could he successfully land on the island? The North Sea Fleet did not have the marines of the future, who could carry out amphibious operations. Finally, Pei Donglai thought of a stupid idea. He ordered the 1st Battalion to land first, while the remaining 4 battalions maintained a fan formation, using bows and arrows to cover the landing of the 1st Battalion. When Blackbeard saw the enemy warships docked, he immediately ordered to stop them from landing. At this moment, a wave of arrows rained down on the pirates' path of advance. The pirates paused and hesitated, not daring to move forward. Blackbeard cursed, the enemy was too shameless. Charge, or everyone will die. Under Blackbeard's supervision, the pirates braved the rain of arrows and advanced, trembling with fear. People were constantly hit by arrows, falling to the ground, and some even died. The pirates on the shore had already escaped death once when their ship was on fire. They had barely escaped death by jumping into the sea, and now they had to die again. They were somewhat unwilling. As the casualties increased, some pirates finally could not take it anymore, and instead retreated, sneaking to the back, trying to escape the range of the rain of arrows. When someone took the lead, others followed. Everyone was afraid of death, and the pirates were no exception. Just like that, before they even reached the halfway point, more than half of the team had fled. Taking advantage of this time, the 1st Battalion of the North Sea Fleet had already begun to land and organize a defense. Blackbeard knew that he was powerless to stop the other party from landing, and if he continued to charge, it would only increase the casualties. Retreat, Blackbeard said bitterly. Receiving the order, the pirates felt as if they had been pardoned, and fled faster than rabbits. Ouyang Shuo stood on the command ship, seeing the other party so impatient, and shook his head in amusement. Just like that, the North Sea Fleet successfully landed on the island, and began to attack the remnants of the pirates. At this time, the pirates had already fled in all directions, and were not organized at all. To prevent any fish from escaping, Pei Donglai ordered the 4th and 5th Battalions not to land on the island, but to patrol the sea, sealing off the waters around Moonchild Island and completely blocking the escape route of the pirates. Moonchild Island only covered an area of 50 square kilometers and was not a good hiding place. Pei Donglai tacitly implemented Ouyang Shua's surrender policy, letting the soldiers shout that those who voluntarily came out to surrender could be forgiven, while those who hid and did not want to show themselves would be killed upon capture. Pei Donglai's threat was very effective. The pirates' faces were ashen as they walked out of the island dejectedly, raising their hands to surrender. Only Blackbeard and a few other diehards were still resisting. Pei Donglai did not hold back against these stubborn people. He ordered the 1st Battalion to search for them and execute them on the spot. The purge continued for an entire afternoon before all the remaining pirates were completely wiped out. Accompanied by Pei Donglai, Ouyang Shua inspected the entire island. The Black Shark pirates were good at plundering, but their construction ability was terrible. There wasn't even a fence built in the entire colony. It was completely open. The number of buildings on the island could be counted on one hand. The place where the pirates spent the most effort was probably the dock where they landed. Walking along the pier, there was a narrow dirt road. It was full of potholes and the surface of the road was wet. Ouyang Shua had to watch his feet carefully so that he wouldn't step into a puddle. On both sides of the dirt road, there were a few wooden houses scattered here and there. The wooden hut was built very crudely, as if it was hastily pieced together by a few wooden planks. Ouyang Shua even doubted whether such a wooden hut could block the wind and rain on rainy days. Outside the wooden hut, there wasn't any decent courtyard. There weren't any livestock or vegetables to be grown. Under the eaves, there were a few tattered clothes fluttering in the wind. Occasionally, a few skewers of dried fish could be seen drying. It was considered a rather diligent pirate's home. The surrounding fields were basically uncultivated and barren. There weren't any crops growing in the fields. On the other hand, the foxtail grass was abnormally lush, telling of some sort of decadence. From this, it could be seen that the pirates didn't produce anything at all. They completely relied on plundering resources to survive. Continuing to walk in, a pond suddenly appeared in the center of the island. Ouyang Shua estimated that it wasn't even 500 square meters. It should be the only source of fresh water on the island. Because of this, the pirates viewed the pond as their most important asset and protected it very tightly. There was a circle of buildings built around the pond. They were all made of wood and looked sturdier than the wooden houses on the periphery. This should be the core area of the pirate. The most popular tavern of the pirates was built here. The courtyard at the highest point was very eye-catching among the wooden houses. Needless to say, that must be the residence of the pirate chief. Along the way, Ouyang Shua had already lost interest in looking around and went straight to the courtyard. Even when he walked into the island, the road along the way hadn't been improved. It was still full of potholes. On both sides of the road, foxtail grass with strong vitality was swaying in the wind. Buildings were the first priority for the soldiers to clean up. Therefore, when Ouyang Shua arrived, apart from the soldiers of the North Sea Fleet on duty, there wasn't a single pirate in the house. On the ground, he could occasionally see some bloodstains and traces of a fight. Seeing Ouyang Shua, the soldier on duty immediately saluted. Ouyang Shua nodded and passed through the gate. The soldier on duty didn't expect to receive a response from the Marquis. He felt warm in his heart. Ouyang Shua looked up and inspected the most advanced building on Moonchild Island. The small courtyard in front of him was just a simple courtyard house. It reminded Ouyang Shua of the Lord's residence when the Shanghai village was first built. The two were very similar. Ouyang Shua came to the meeting hall and began to patiently wait for the information gathered from all sides. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, all the information was gathered at Pei Donglai's place and reported to Ouyang Shua. Under Ouyang Shua's indication, Pei Donglai sat down in the meeting hall and said, reporting to the Marquis, "This battle was much smoother than expected. We didn't suffer many casualties, only losing a little over 150 people. Ouyang Shua nodded. The progress of the battle was indeed beyond his expectations. We captured a total of more than 1,650 pirates in this battle. The rest of the pirates were all killed. Most of the pirate ships were burned in the fire. Only 5 or 6 ships survived and have been towed back to the dock. Pei Donglai continued to report. Through seizing the various vaults and searching the pirates' rooms, we seized a total of more than 12,500 gold coins and a box of all kinds of jewelry. The weapons, equipment, food, and other resources we seized were relatively rare. There wasn't a large stock. Ouyang Shua nodded. This situation was also within his expectations. Pirates relied on plundering for a living. When they ran out of food, they would go out and plunder. Therefore, they definitely wouldn't have too much food. On the contrary, the gold, silver, and jewelry that the pirates plundered were all stockpiled because they didn't have a channel to purchase them. It was precisely because of this that a pirate organization of more than 3,000 people would have more than 10,000 gold coins in wealth. Take out 500 gold coins from the seized funds and reward them to the officers and soldiers. Ouyang Shua opened his mouth and said. No one knew when it started, but Ouyang Shua began to reward the soldiers who participated in the battle based on their merits to encourage them to fight bravely. Thank you, Marquis, for your reward. Pei Donglai thanked on behalf of his subordinate. Did you seize any special items? Ouyang Shua asked. The special items he was referring to were actually special items. Generally speaking, when pirates plundered everywhere, there was a high probability that they would obtain some strange items. Yes. Pei Donglai indeed didn't disappoint him. Under Pei Donglai's indication, the soldiers on duty outside moved all the seized gold coins, jewelry, and special items into the meeting hall for Ouyang Shua to examine. Ouyang Shua stood up. Other than leaving behind 500 gold coins, he put the rest of the jewelry and gold coins into his storage pouch. The full meeting hall became empty again. Only 2 items were left, a stone and a map. Ouyang Shua first picked up the black stone and looked at its attribute. The stone wasn't big, only the size of 2 fists. Holding it in his hand, it was indeed very heavy. Meteorite essence iron, purple gold grade god stone that fell from the sky, a rare forging material. The item's attributes were very simple, but it made Ouyang Shua's heart surge. A purple gold grade forging material. Ouyang Shua seemed to see his personal weapon waving at him. Just this piece of meteorite essence iron made Ouyang Shua feel that this trip was worth it. Ouyang Shua guessed that the reason why Blackbeard didn't use this meteorite essence iron to forge a weapon was because he couldn't find a suitable blacksmith. This kind of high-grade material required at least a master blacksmith to forge. He carefully put the meteorite essence iron into his storage pouch and picked up the map. North Bay Treasure Map. One legend has it that a very famous pirate was born in the North Bay. People called him Bloody Butcher. After Bloody Butcher died, the huge amount of wealth he had plundered disappeared. Legend has it that before Bloody Butcher died, he buried this treasure on an uninhabited island. Bloody Butcher drew the location of the island into a treasure map and divided it into 3, giving it to his 3 most trusted subordinates. After Bloody Butcher died, the 3 subordinates fought each other for the treasure map. Therefore, a civil war that lasted for a year caused the pirate organization that Bloody Butcher had built before his death to fall apart. In the end, the 3 subordinates couldn't win against each other and died in depression, leaving the treasure map to their descendants. In the hundreds of years after that, the treasure map changed hands several times, causing many bloody storms. Regretfully, no one had ever successfully gathered all 3 maps and found Bloody Butcher's treasure. Slowly, there were rumors that Bloody Butcher drawing the treasure map was just a ruse. His real goal was to start a war between the pirates. This kind of speculation was very much in line with Bloody Butcher's personality. Slowly, the truth about the treasure map disappeared in the river of time. No one believed in Bloody Butcher's rumors anymore. The treasure map became a collector's item, and no one bothered to fight for it anymore. To be continued. Chapter 253. Ouyang Shua casually put away the North Bay treasure map into his storage bag. He didn't know how long it would take to collect this kind of treasure map. He might not be able to collect it even after the game ended. After checking the supplies, Ouyang Shua returned to his seat and turned to look at Pei Donglai. He asked, "General Pei, what are your thoughts on how to deal with the Moon Island?" Ouyang Shua's question didn't mean that he was trying to take Pei Donglai down. As the commander-in-chief of the North Sea Fleet, not only did he have to be decisive on the battlefield, he also had to have the corresponding strategic vision to deal with the aftermath of the battle. Pei Donglai pondered for a moment, then said, "The other facilities on Moon Island are rather simple and crude, but the docks that were built can be preserved and used as an intermediate supply station for future naval battles." Pei Donglai knew very well that the Marquis had not established the North Sea Fleet just to exterminate pirates. There must have been more important strategic arrangements. No matter what, if the fleet wanted to enter the deep sea and dominate the ocean, logistics would be an unavoidable problem. The fleet sailed day and night. If they did not have a stable temporary stop along the way, it would be a huge test for the storage of supplies and the physical fitness of the sailors. Ouyang Shua nodded, then shook his head. "What do you mean, Marquis?" Pei Donglai was a little uneasy. "Of course we will set up a supply depot." Ouyang Shua first confirmed Pei Donglai's opinion, then changed the topic. "However, this is far from enough. Although the Moonchild Island did not occupy a large area, its various conditions were very good, and it also had sufficient fresh water reserves. Therefore, we can completely transform the Moon Island into a small naval base. In order to set up a supply station, it was necessary to store a large amount of resources on the Moon Island. Correspondingly, in order to guard this batch of resources, they had to send a team to guard it. Therefore, according to Ouyang Shua's plan, he might as well complete the transformation of Moon Island in one go. This Marquis has a few requests. As for the specifics, General Pei, contact Xiuwen. The Beihai County Construction Department will be in charge of the remodeling of Moon Island. Ouyang Shua first set the tone, then said, "First, the Moon Island's pier must be upgraded to a port. Not only do they have to provide a place for warships to dock, but they also have to provide facilities for warship maintenance and repair. Second, demolish and rebuild all the buildings on the island. The most important thing was to build a military fortress, which would serve as a stronghold for the personnel stationed on the island and a warehouse for the storage of resources. A military fortress could not only shrink its defensive power, but it would also not occupy a large amount of land on the island. The carpentry workshops, blacksmiths, weapons workshops, and other supporting facilities were all built inside the fortress, forming a relatively enclosed fortress. Third, reclaim the wasteland. All the wastelands outside the military fortress had to be reclaimed to grow vegetables and other crops to achieve the island's self-sufficiency. This Marquis has estimated that Moon Island can be reclaimed into at least 50,000 mu of farmland. With such a scale, not only can we be self-sufficient, but we can even supply them to the outside world. We don't need to frequently transfer supplies from Beihai County to Moon Island for storage. Fourth, modify the pond. In order to grow crops on a large scale, there must be enough water for irrigation. Therefore, the pond needs to be expanded, at least 5 to 10 times its current size, turning the pond into a small lake on the island or a small reservoir. Ouyang Shua explained the basic situation of the Moon Island that he had observed in the afternoon, and combined it with his own plan. In the future, the Moon Island would have 4 major systems: a military fortress, a harbor, a reservoir, and farmland. Put together, it was a powerful naval base. After the Moon Island naval base was completed, it would become the midway island for the North Sea Fleet to enter the deep sea. Pei Donglai was shocked by the Marquis' grand plan. He said respectfully, Please rest assured, Marquis. I will definitely cooperate with the North Sea County government and complete the remodeling of the moon or island as soon as possible. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, Then I will leave it to the general. On the day of the naval base's completion, I will visit moon or island again to celebrate your success. Yes, Pei Donglai said excitedly. After the discussion, Ouyang Shuo stayed on the island for the night. The next morning, the North Sea Fleet returned. Pei Donglai left the North Sea Fleet's 1st Battalion on Moon or Island. As for the pirate captives, they were all escorted back to Beihai County. Moon or Island's strategic location was very important. Ouyang Shuo did not feel at ease leaving these pirates on the island. On the afternoon of October 25th, the North Sea Fleet returned to Beihai Harbor. After Ouyang Shuo left Beihai Harbor, he deliberately took a detour to Beihai County and had a deep conversation with the Beihai County magistrate, Gu Xiuwen, about the construction of the Moon or Island naval base. That night, Ouyang Shuo returned to the Marquis' manor. After returning, Ouyang Shuo took out a box of jewelry and gave it to Zissou, telling her to put it into the inner treasury. Counting it, this was already the 3rd box of jewelry that Ouyang Shuo had obtained. Ouyang Shuo was not a stingy person. Whether it was Song Jia, Sun Xiaoye, the 2 sisters Yingyu and Qing'er, or even the maids Zissou and Si Qin, they had all received jewelry as a reward. The next morning, after Ouyang Shuo accompanied Bing for breakfast, he impatiently walked out of the Marquis' mansion and went straight to the first workshop in the Eastern District to find the master blacksmith Wang Zhuan. Greetings to the Marquis. Wang Zhuan bowed. Ouyang Shuo nodded and took out the piece of meteorite iron from his storage pouch. He put it on the table and said with a smile, Do you recognize this thing? When Wang Zhuan saw the meteorite iron, his eyes did not move. He stared straight at it as if he was possessed. He could not help but get up and walk to the table. He reached out to touch the meteorite iron as if he was touching a peerless treasure. He muttered to himself, This, could this be the legendary God's stone from heaven? Ouyang Shuo also did not expect that the usually unruly Wang Zhuan would have such a reaction. He nodded with a smile and said, Yes, it is the God's stone from heaven. To be honest, Ouyang Shuo was still hesitating last night whether he should give this piece of meteorite iron to Wang Zhuan to forge. Such a precious forging material, naturally, the higher the level of the blacksmith, the higher the chance of success. In the game, god-level blacksmiths were either recruited by the royal family and hired as royal craftsmen, which was difficult for ordinary people to come into contact with, or they came and went without a trace, wandering without a fixed residence. To meet them, it was all luck. Moreover, although the purple gold meteorite iron was rare, it was an ordinary material in the eyes of god-level blacksmiths. It was not worth their time. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo had long given up on this idea. At the very least, it was best to find a grandmaster blacksmith to forge it. If god-level blacksmiths were hard to find, grandmaster blacksmiths could still be found in the royal city. If they forged it, Ouyang Shuo was sure that they could definitely forge a purple gold weapon. Ouyang Shuo gave up on the temptation. The most important thing was that he hoped that Wang Zhuan could use this opportunity to make a breakthrough. At the very least, he could greatly increase his blacksmithing experience and lay the foundation for becoming a grandmaster blacksmith. Not only was he a general, but he was also a lord. When considering a problem, he had to consider the interests of the territory. If the territory could produce a grandmaster blacksmith, the benefits would be endless. Moreover, if Wang Zhuan was the one forging it, with the characteristics of the territory of Shanhai County, there was a high chance that he could forge a purple gold weapon. After getting a positive answer, Wang Zhuan's eyes lit up. He wanted to vomit the meteorite iron into his stomach. In an instant, he thought of the purpose of the Marquis' visit. A bolt of lightning flashed across his mind, and his heart almost skipped a beat. Indeed, Ouyang Shuo said calmly, I want to use this piece of meteorite iron to forge a long spear. Are you confident? Although he was already mentally prepared, Wang Zhuan's emotions that had just calmed down became excited again. He stammered, "Marquis, do you have any specific requirements?" Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, "This spear will be my main weapon. The spearhead will be forged with meteorite iron, and the spear shaft will be forged with meteorite iron. What do you think?" Wang Zhuan looked at the size of the meteorite iron, nodded and said, "That's enough. All right, I will wait for your good news." Ouyang Shuo did not delay any further and stood up to leave. Yes. After Ouyang Shuo left, Wang Zhuan came to the front of the meteorite iron again and observed it carefully. In his mind, he was constantly thinking about how to forge this long spear. Wang Zhuan was very clear about the difficulty and significance of forging this long spear. Therefore, he would not act rashly. He was determined to forge this masterpiece in his best condition. He must not let the Marquis down. At the end of October, the rice in the territory began to be harvested. The most important grain-producing area was naturally Pool Water County. With 400,000 mu of rice, a conservative estimate would be able to produce 120 million units of grain. With such a huge grain output, just by collecting agricultural taxes, they could collect 4 million units of grain. The collected grain would be used as military rations, enough to feed the 20,000-strong army for 3 months. Other than Pool Water County, Yi County, Tianfeng County, Yishui County, Gushan County, Eternal Night Town, Guangshui Town, and the headquarters of Shanhai County would all be able to harvest a batch of grain. According to the statistics from the Department of Agriculture, the entire territory would produce about 200 million units of grain in the second season of rice harvesting. From now until the beginning of July, when the first rice harvest would begin, there would still be a total of 8 months. Based on the pace of expansion and population growth of Shanhai County, in addition to the consumption of the military factory and the 3-flower wine, Ouyang Shuo had roughly estimated that Shanhai County would need to purchase at least 20 million units of grain from the market to satisfy the territory's food consumption. Grain would always be a strategic resource. As the rice was harvested, the price of grain in the market fell. Similarly, after experiencing the food crisis, all the lords realized the importance of grain. From the moment the grain was harvested, all the lords, like Ouyang Shuo, took stock of the grain in their territory, calculated the grain consumption of the territory for the next 8 months, and calculated the shortage of grain. Needless to say, most of the territory's grain was not self-sufficient. They had to purchase a portion from the market to make up for the shortage. Therefore, although the price of grain had fallen, the era of 10 copper coins per unit of grain was gone forever. To be continued. Chapter 254. In October, the Wolf Mountain Mine and the North Twilight Saltworks turned in 17,000 gold coins of profit. Ouyang Shuo kept 5,000 gold coins and transferred the rest to the Finance Bureau. The Sanhua winery in the western suburbs had been built and could start production next month. According to Du Chun's estimation, the winery could achieve about half of the target production capacity in November and turn in a profit of 3,000 to 4,000 gold coins. The mulberry garden expansion had also been completed, but the seedling and planting of the mulberry trees required a relatively long growth period. To realize the mulberry garden operation, it would have to wait at least next year. With the promotion of the Setting Moon Society and the establishment of the Shanhai County King's City Office, new players and NPC skilled talents poured into Shanhai County every day. The influx of talents was distributed to the various affiliated territories by Ouyang Shuo to promote the balanced development of the territory. With a large number of professional players and NPC skilled talents recruited by the Chui Chamber of Commerce into the 3 major military workshops in the Eastern District, the production of weapons and equipment doubled. The sequela was the shortage of leather, tendons, and other materials. Leather was slightly better, and some could be purchased from the nomadic tribes through the Friendship County market. Tendons were more difficult to obtain. This kind of material was a controlled item, and the Chui Chamber of Commerce could not do anything about it. In the end, it was his aunt who helped him solve this problem. In fact, adventurer players had to go to the wilderness every day to kill monsters and earn experience. In the wilderness there were mostly wild wolves, bison, and other monsters. These monsters did not drop equipment, and players could only collect some materials. Therefore, every adventurer player had more or less some leather, tendons, and other materials. After being reminded by his aunt, Ouyang Shua made a prompt decision and sent her 10,000 gold coins, asking Snow Rose to help buy all kinds of materials from players for a long time. Of course, Lin Jing was willing. In fact, Snow Rose's guild warehouse stored a large number of leather, tendons, and other materials. In their opinion, these materials not only took up space, but also could not be cashed in. If they were sold to the shops in the King's City, it would be too cheap, and they would not be willing to accept it. Now that Ouyang Shua, the Great Lord, was willing to buy without limit, it was naturally the best of both worlds. The purchase price agreed by the two sides was double the base price of the shops in the King's City. Even so, such a price for the huge profits of weapons and equipment was still cheap. Ouyang Shua knew that the materials in the hands of adventurer players had not attracted the attention of the Lord players because they did not have the corresponding technical manuals and could not enter the military industry for the time being. Even Ouyang Shua himself had only noticed this point after being reminded by his aunt. However, this situation would eventually be broken. Lords would eventually find other ways to obtain weapons and equipment crafting manuals. When that time came, the prices of various materials would skyrocket. Naturally, Ouyang Shua did not purchase these materials for speculation. As Shanghai County was determined to become the largest arms dealer in China, the demand for materials in the future would be terrifying. He had to prepare for a rainy day. Just like that, when no one was paying attention, the materials that the adventurer players had accumulated started to flow into the hands of the merchants sent by Snow Death Rose, and then into the warehouse of Shanghai County. First, it was Jianya, and then it expanded to all of the system royal cities. The players were very willing to buy from the merchants, and they were very enthusiastic. Some players had originally thrown these materials into the guild warehouse to prevent them from taking up space in their inventory. When they received the news, they all took out their stockpiled materials from the guild and sold them to the merchants who came to purchase them. Because of this, the materials stored by the various guilds were disappearing at a visible rate. Such an anomaly naturally attracted the attention of the guild's higher-up. After understanding the situation, they simply packed up the materials in the warehouse and sold them to the merchant. Naturally, everyone was happy. When the players put the materials in the guild warehouse, the guild tacitly allowed them to dispose of them. Of course, after the processing, the guild would calculate the contribution points for the members according to the value of the items. Abruptly, a wave of material acquisition swept across the entire China region quietly unfolded. As the acquisition intensified, it could no longer be hidden. Whether it was the top 10 guilds or the influential lords, they all knew that Snow Death Rose had been purchasing all kinds of materials in a frenzy. The players' appetite for gossip was endless, and their ability to inquire about information was also amazing. Gradually, the relationship between the Snow Death Rose and Shanghai County was uncovered by the players, and the mysterious veil was slowly torn open. The close cooperation between the two attracted the attention of many people. At this time, the family relationship between Ouyang Shua and Lin Jing was exposed. The informant was a core member of the Snow Death Rose, who had followed Lin Jing to Shanghai County. Such a betrayal undoubtedly made Xie and Lin Jing extremely angry, and they immediately expelled the member from the guild. Not only that, but they also sent a law enforcement team to hunt her down, making it impossible for her to establish a foothold in Jianya. There was no doubt that this player's betrayal was orchestrated by someone behind the scenes. Even if the traitor was reincarnated, he would still receive a huge amount of compensation that could make up for his loss. As for who the mastermind behind the scenes was, Ouyang Shuo did not need to rack his brain to figure it out. After all, he could not control people like Di Chun. Lin Jing and the others were angry not because of the exposure, but because of the betrayer. One had to know that the traitor was a core member of the guild, an old minister who had fought with the studio for many years. Unexpectedly, he could not resist the temptation of outside interests and brazenly threw his years of friendship to the back of his mind. Obviously, as the game became more and more involved with the interests of the real world, the interpersonal and organizational relationships in the game would become more and more complicated and unpredictable. Ouyang Shuo was not worried about this. As the cooperation between Shanghai County and Snow Death increased, it was only a matter of time before it was exposed. He had long been mentally prepared. There was no doubt that after the exposure, Shanghai County would become even more feared. Many people were shocked to find that the influence of Shanghai County had expanded to the adventure-type group. This was after it was exposed. Were there other forces in Shanghai County hiding under the iceberg? Everything was unknown. Shanghai County, which had already been shrouded in mystery, became mysterious once again. How could anyone not be shocked by such a Shanghai County? Since it was already out in the open, Ouyang Shuo decided not to hide it anymore. He sent 20,000 gold coins to his aunt, Lin Jing. He was determined to sweep away all the materials in the hands of the players in the China server. For this, Ouyang Shuo specially ordered the construction department to choose a cave and transform it into a warehouse suitable for storing such materials. There were too many materials, and leather and such took up a lot of space in the storage bag. If players used teleportation to smuggle the materials, the teleportation fee was even higher than the 10% transaction tax. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo decided to trade through the super auction platform. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and pay the transaction tax of up to 3,000 gold coins. Gaia had supervision over the transactions on the super auction platform. Players could not even think of lowering the price of goods to avoid paying the transaction tax. As the purchase went on, piles of leather, bundles of cow tendons, cow horns, and other materials were sent to Shanghai County through the super auction platform every day. They were then transported to the cave and stored. Soon, half of the huge cavern was filled. With such a large amount of materials, according to the calculations of Wu Peng and Wang Zhuan, Division Chief of the Bow and Crossbow Department, Division Chief of the Armor Workshop, they could make at least 1,000,000 bowstrings, 400,000 sets of radiant armor, and various kinds of leather armor. The two of them were naturally very excited about the marquee purchase. They did not expect that the problem of materials that they were worried about would be solved so quickly, and it far exceeded their expectations. Most of the lords chose to stand by and watch Ouyang Shuo's actions. Firstly, they had just experienced a food crisis and their funds were basically drained. Secondly, even if they bought the materials, they would not be able to use them for a while. It would be a waste of the territory's liquidity. More importantly, in the eyes of the lord players, there were endless monsters in the wild. If they really needed these materials in the future, they could just buy them from the players. There was no need to waste so much effort and compete with Shanghai County. Ouyang Shuo obviously knew what the lords were thinking. He only smiled coldly. When it came to understanding the game, no one could compare to him. In theory, there were indeed endless monsters in the wild. The crux of the problem was that the distribution of monsters was relatively even. Even though Gaia had more monsters around the capital to take care of adventurous players, the number was still limited. Most of the monsters were in the mountains and forests, making it difficult for adventurous players to come into contact with them. As players passed the novice stage, they no longer needed to rely on killing monsters to gain experience. In other words, the experience gained from killing monsters was very limited. They had to venture deep into the wilderness to compete with bandits and bandit. Therefore, the first year of the game was the period when players killed the most monsters. It was also the best period to purchase all kinds of materials. After that, the supply of various materials would gradually decrease. On the other hand, as players' levels increased, their personal savings would also increase steadily. The money they earned from selling materials was no longer important to the players. Naturally, they would not have the motivation to kill monsters or gather leather and other materials. There was another point. Compared to bows, bowstrings were more easily damaged and needed to be replaced. In the Tang Dynasty army, a bow needed 3 bowstrings. Therefore, the consumption of things like beef tendons was huge. Ouyang Shua's sweeping came at the right time. He swept clean the materials that the players had accumulated for almost a year, eating the biggest and most delicious piece of the cake. For this operation, Ouyang Shua paid a one-time sum of 33,000 gold coins. Other than the 100,000 gold coins that could not be used, he only had a pitiful 3,000 gold coins left in his storage bag. This stroke of genius also helped Shanhai County develop its military industry. It established a very solid material foundation. There was no need to worry about materials for a long time in the future. To be continued. Chapter 255. Handan County, the meeting hall of the Lord's Mansion. I didn't expect to catch such a big fish. Di Chun stood in the hall, looking out of the door with an inexplicable expression. Knowing that Shanhai County was cooperating with the Snow Sorrow Rose, Di Chun immediately sent people to contact the core members of the Snow Sorrow Rose. With a large sum of money, they finally got one to talk. The news he received caught Di Chun, the instigator of all this, off guard. Peerless Elegance sat in the hall, her expression cold. She said slowly, "We need to speed up the negotiations with crisscrossing Sword Chi. Hao Wui is one step ahead of us." Di Chun did not turn around. With his hands behind his back, he said helplessly, "One sword from the west is demanding too much. This fish is not easy to deal with. The people below have found out that one sword from the west and the rain-listening pavilioness, thunderous Sword Chi, once had an emotional entanglement. Perhaps we can use this as a breakthrough to get one sword from the west to talk. Okay, I'll leave this matter to you." Di Chun finally turned around and said affectionately to Peerless Elegance. Peerless Elegance frowned and nodded silently. She did not make any promises. Military Kill Ripper has been a little restless recently. He is very close to Lord Chunshin, Di Chun said as he sat down and took a sip of tea. He said bitterly, "I didn't expect to go for wool and come home shorn." Peerless Elegance shook her head and said, "You don't have to worry. Through Military Kill Ripper's probing, at least we have first-hand information about the Shanhai County Army. As for Military Kill Ripper's proximity to Lord Chunshin, you don't have to worry." "Oh, what do you mean?" "Lord Chunshin is a person who is extremely shrewd and suspicious by nature. Military Kill Ripper has been following us. How can Lord Chunshin trust him like this? He is just a pawn." Di Chun nodded, agreeing with Peerless Elegance's judgment. But Peerless Elegance frowned and said uneasily, "Compared to Military Kill Ripper, I am more worried about Hao Wui. From the information we have gathered, Shanhai County has spent a lot of money on this purchase." "Yes." Di Chun sighed and said with a bitter smile, "Grandfather thought that by sowing discord, we could cut off Shanhai County's funds and make them unable to survive the food crisis. Who would have thought that not only was the other party safe and sound, but he was also wealthy? I really don't know where he got all these funds from." Di Chun didn't know what to feel when he thought of his grandfather's dark face. Ever since he was young, his grandfather had been an insurmountable mountain that he could not overcome, and he had been pressured to the point that he could not breathe. Unfortunately, the routine in the game was completely different from reality. Even his grandfather, an old hunter, had failed time and time again and was humiliated by not wearing anything. If that's the case, the upcoming annual auction will be a bloodbath. We must not let our guard down. However, they already knew about the annual auction. The power of a large clan was indeed not to be underestimated. There's no other way. Let's just live frugally. We're determined to get that thing. Di Chen was also helpless. He didn't know if he was lucky or unlucky to have an opponent like He Yuwui. Ouyang Shua's actions caused a lot of discussion within the alliance of mountains and seas. Boss, you have hidden your strength well. Even Snow Death Rose is your ally. Siege Lion was the first to make fun of him. If there's anything you need from a player's guild, you can look for them. Since he had already laid it all out, Ouyang Shua decided to include Snow Death Rose in the alliance of mountains and seas. That's possible. Dragon Searching Acupoint said, with the help of a guild, many things will be much more convenient. It's mutually beneficial. Ahem. Actually, Dolly's Breeze Pavilion is also a guild related to our Lingxi County. Taking this opportunity, Bai Hua also revealed his trump card. After the relationship between Shanghai County and a Snow Death Rose was exposed, the pavilion master of Breeze Pavilion, Bright Moon Illuminates the River, immediately contacted Bai Hua. After some discussion, the siblings decided to take the initiative to announce their relationship. This way, Breeze Pavilion and a Snow Death Rose could rely on each other in the competition between guilds. This way they would be able to avoid friendly fire, and they could also effectively fight against the other 10 guilds. Bai Hua's announcement didn't cause too much of a commotion. Aside from Feng Chihuang, all of the members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas knew of the famous Lingxi studio. In the previous game, they were famous for managing guild. Even if they switched to territory development mode, they wouldn't completely say goodbye to guild. It was only natural for them to arrange for a portion of their members to establish guild. No wonder. Dragon Searching Acupoint wasn't done yet. Bai Hua smiled. Of course, she could hear the meaning behind Dragon Searching Acupoint's words. After the food crisis, the Bank of the Four Seas had conquered almost all of the territories of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas. The only exception was Lingxi County. Everyone was curious as to how Lingxi County had survived this crisis. It was only when the identity of Breeze Pavilion was revealed that everyone understood. With the help of Breeze Pavilion, there was nothing to worry about. Wow, why do I feel like our Alliance of Mountains and Seas can dominate not only the Lord-class players, but also the Adventurer-class players? Siege Lion said with a smile. Ouyang Shua furrowed his brows. This wasn't a good attitude. He said, everyone, don't let your guard down. Also, only the few of us know about Breeze Pavilion. Don't spread it. The longer the better. Ouyang Shua still liked to hide his trump cards. He didn't like his enemies to see through everything. Understood. Feng Chihuang didn't say anything. After everyone had digested the information about Breeze Pavilion, he said, Wui, according to the time, the third battle should be starting soon, right? Ouyang Shua nodded. More or less. According to the previous pattern, I estimate that the third battle will be triggered after the 100th county town is promoted. Then it really might start at any time. Should we make preparations? How should we prepare? We don't even know which battle it will be. Siege Lion asked. Feng Chihuang came prepared. According to the pattern of the previous 2 battles, after Western Zhou, the third battle should be an iconic battle that happened during the Spring and Autumn Warring States period. That's right. During this period there were many famous historical figures. Dragon Searching Acupoint was more sensitive about this. That's right. There were countless strategists and generals. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Which battle do you think Gaia will choose? The Spring and Autumn Warring States period, especially the Warring States period, was filled with endless wars. There were too many famous battles, so it's hard to guess. Dragon Searching Acupoint said, feeling conflicted. In my opinion, although there were many famous battles during the Spring and Autumn Warring States period, the most iconic battle would be the Battle of Chongping. Feng Qiuhuang was confident. Everyone was shocked and then came to a realization. It might really be as Feng Wu speculated. Bai Hua was the first to support. Wui, what do you think? Feng Qiuhuang asked curiously when he saw that Ouyang Shuo hadn't said anything. Ouyang Shuo's heart trembled. Of course he knew that the third battle was the Battle of Chongping that Feng Qiuhuang speculated. It seemed that the Lord players had gradually figured out Gaia's battle strategy. In this case, Ouyang Shuo's prediction of the battle would be greatly discounted. I also think that there's a 90% chance that it will be the Battle of Chongping. Ouyang Shuo said calmly. The Battle of Chongping was the most tragic battle in history. Both Qin and Zhao invested more than 1,000,000 troops, and both sides were elite troops. Their combat power was comparable to ours, and they might even be stronger. Such a battle won't be easy to deal with. We won't become bystanders, will we? Dragon searching acupoint was very clear about history. Bystanders? Impossible. I estimate that the number of players in this battle will exceed 100,000. No matter how bad it is, it won't be bystanders. Feng Qiuhuang had high hopes. In fact, after the spring and autumn warring states period, it's already impossible for us to rely on the advantage of weapons and equipment to crush the other armies like we did in the previous two battles. We can't do it, but Big Brother, you can. The Tang dynasty's radiant armor and the Song dynasty's infantry armor. The spring and autumn warring states period didn't have such powerful armor. Siege Lion joked. That's right, boss. When will Shanhai County's weapons and equipment be sold to us? You have no idea, but Qin Xiong keeps pestering me for the radiant armor. It's so annoying. Dragon searching acupoint added in. We are working hard to build a military system. The earliest will be next year, Ouyang Shuo said with a wry smile. He knew that they had not given up on the infantry armor and radiant armor. Back to the topic at hand. Feng Qiuhuang noticed that the three men were straying off topic again. He said anxiously, if the deduction is accurate, this battle won't be easy. We should make early preparations. The crux of the problem is how long Gaia has extrapolated the Battle of Chongping to. After all, the Battle of Chongping has been going on for 3 years. There are too many variables, Dragon searching acupoint said with a frown. Indeed, even Ouyang Shuo did not know how Gaia had extrapolated it. If it was the early stages of the battle, and the Zhao kingdom had not replaced Lianpo with Zhao Kuo, then both sides would be evenly matched. Choosing the Zhao kingdom's camp would allow them to turn the tables. If Gaia had pushed the battle to the point where the Zhao army was trapped by the Qin army, then the Qin camp would have the absolute advantage. It would be difficult for the players to turn the tables. There's no point in thinking too much. Let's discuss it after the battle is announced. Ouyang Shuo was momentarily at a loss. All right, Feng Qiuhuang said unhappily. Wui, don't forget about the Yan-Huang alliance, Bai Hua reminded. This is the first battle that the Yan-Huang alliance will experience since its establishment. They lost so badly in the first 2 battles because they did not understand the battle. In addition, Yu Wui made a surprise move. Now that the third battle is so easy to guess, Di Chun and the others are not stupid. They will definitely make the same judgment as us. This way, both sides will be on the same starting line. They will definitely want to turn the tables, so we have to be on guard. If you want to fight, let's fight. What's the big deal? Siege Lion said domineeringly. Ouyang Shuo nodded and did not say a word. To be continued. Chapter 256. Turning off the Alliance channel, Ouyang Shuo was still thinking about the third battle. The Battle of Chongping, which side to choose, how to plan, all these were repeatedly rehearsed in his mind. While he was lost in thought, his secretary Lang by Nanpu walked in. Marquis, the head of the first workshop, Wang Zhuan, invites you to the workshop. He said it has something to do with the weapon forged for you. Ouyang Shuo was startled. It had been 5 days since he gave the meteorite iron to Wang Zhuan. Calculating the time, the forging should be finished. He just didn't know why Wang Zhuan didn't directly send the spear to the Marquis's mansion, but instead invited him. Could it be that there was a problem with the forging? Without thinking too much, Ouyang Shuo hurriedly walked out of the office. He hurried to the workshop of the first workshop. A young blacksmith stood at the door. When he saw Ouyang Shuo, he said respectfully, "Greetings, Marquis. The head of the workshop is in the workshop, please follow me." Ouyang Shuo nodded and followed the blacksmith to Wang Zhuan's exclusive workshop. As soon as he entered, a wave of heat hit him. In the workshop, besides Wang Zhuan, there were 3 assistants who were helping Wang Zhuan with the final tempering of the spear. At this moment, it was obviously a critical moment. Wang Zhuan's whole body was already soaked. Bean-sized beads of sweat flowed down like a drizzle, dripping on the red-hot workbench, giving off bursts of white smoke. The young blacksmith walked to Wang Zhuan's side and whispered. Wang Zhuan nodded slightly and continued the final forging. Ouyang Shuo was not in a hurry. He simply stood at the door and waited. 10 minutes later, Wang Zhuan stopped hammering and took the sweat towel from his assistant. After wiping the sweat off his face, he walked to Ouyang Shuo's side and said, "Marquis." Ouyang Shuo nodded. "Why did head Wang invite me here?" Soldiers are also weapons. When a divine weapon is forged, it needs to drink human blood. Later, Marquis, please contribute a few drops of blood and inject it into the divine weapon to awaken its spirituality. Wang Zhuan explained. Ouyang Shuo suddenly understood. Wasn't it just a drop of blood to recognize the owner? Why did it sound so mysterious? Without hesitation, he pulled out the tang knife from his waist and made a small cut on his hand. Half a bowl of blood dripped out. He took the gauze from his assistant and bandaged it. For Ouyang Shuo, who practiced inner force, such a small wound could be healed within a day. Wang Xing took the porcelain bowl filled with fresh blood and returned to the workbench. He ordered his assistant to throw the spear into the furnace. When the spear turned red, Wang Zheng's hands and eyes were sharp, and he accurately poured the blood in the bowl onto the spear. As soon as the blood touched the spear, it seeped into the spear at a speed visible to the naked eye. Suddenly, the spear was covered in a layer of red, shining with a bewitching light. It flickered as if it had a mind of its own. Amidst the raging flames, a demon god appeared out of thin air. Its demonic nature was monstrous, and its ferocious might was impressive. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, indicating that the spear was extraordinary. Now, Wang Zhuan was completely focused. Although the phenomenon was beyond his imagination, he was still calm and collected. He ordered his assistant to help him take out the spear and proceed with the final steps of quenching and annealing. After the last hammer strike, Wang Zhuan was immediately paralyzed. With the help of his assistant, he could barely stand. Even so, a look of joy appeared on Wang Zhuan's face. A system notification rang in Ouyang Shuo's ears. System notification. Congratulations to player not say you have no clothes. The territory's blacksmith, Wang Zhuan, has broken through the shackles and has been promoted to a Grandmaster blacksmith. Reward: 2,000 reputation points. Following that, there was a system announcement. System notification. Congratulations to Shanhai County for giving birth to the first Grandmaster blacksmith in the player territory. Shanhai County is specially granted the title Home of Forging. Ouyang Shuo checked the specific attributes of Home of Forging. Home of Forging, territory's blacksmith proficiency increased by 10, blacksmith-type refugee attraction increased by 15. It was a very practical attribute. Ouyang Shuo guessed that it might also have a title like Home of Tailors. Wang Zhuan's promotion and the attributes of Home of Forging would definitely drive the territory's blacksmiths to a higher level, which in turn would promote the rapid development of the military industry. After a short rest, Wang Zhuan held the spear that he had just forged and went to Ouyang Shuo. Marquis, I have accomplished my mission. Please give this spear a name, Marquis. Ouyang Shua took the spear and felt it sink in his hand. According to Ouyang Shua's requirements, the spear was forged according to the shape of a spear. It was completely black, 11 feet long, and weighed 35 kilograms. The spearhead was 1 foot and 3 inches long, and the tip was 3 inches long. It was incomparably sharp. The most special thing about the spear was the demon god's pattern that automatically formed on the body of the spear. It was vivid and lifelike, as if it wanted to devour someone. According to Wang Zhuan, this pattern wasn't carved by him, but formed automatically after it was soaked in blood. Ouyang Shua immediately thought of the demon god's bloodline in his body and immediately understood. He said, "This spear was forged from extraterrestrial divine stones and nourished by the demon god's blood essence. It's called the Sky Demon Spear." Name: Sky Demon Spear, purple gold, hardness, 75, sharpness, 65, toughness, 55 characteristics. Blood devouring. There is a certain chance of devouring the enemy's blood essence to promote the weapon's evolution. Evaluation. Forged from extraterrestrial divine stones and nourished by the demon god's blood essence, it mutated and finally became a divine weapon. Bind owner with blood. Cannot be traded, cannot be dropped, and can be evolved again. If Ouyang Shua hadn't provided the demon god's blood, this spear would have most likely fallen short of success. It would have only been able to reach dark gold rank and not purple gold rank. The Sky Demon Spear was undoubtedly very powerful. It was comparable to Song Jia's azure sharp sword. The most important thing was that the Sky Demon Spear could evolve again. Blood devouring S characteristic determined that as long as the Sky Demon Spear devoured enough blood essence of experts, it could evolve into a true divine weapon and become invincible. Ouyang Shua gently stroked the spear's body and muttered to himself, "Sky Demon Spear, follow me to the battlefield. Drink the enemy's blood and forge an invincible name." The Sky Demon Spear seemed to have sensed something. It lightly jumped and a smear of red flashed. Ouyang Shua was overjoyed. He didn't expect the spear to have such intelligence. The demon god's bloodline was indeed extraordinary. He thought that he could also use this method when he forged a higher-grade radiant armor in the future. Finally, he had a weapon that he could use. Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to check his personal attribute. Name: Don't say I have no clothes. Title 1, Marquis of Lianzhou. Title 2, State Scholar. Omitted. Territory: Shanghai County. Occupation: General, part-time. Level 55. Achievement: 90500/102400. A noble title. 3rd rank Marquis. A reputation. Fame: 77,000/100000. Inner force: 5800/10,000. Root bone: 18 + 8. Comprehension: 21 + 4. Fortune source: 5. Charm: 8. Commander: 75 + 10. Martial power: 38 + 5. Intelligence: 20. Politics: 57. Talent. Omitted. Characteristics. Omitted. Mental. Cultivation method: Yellow Emperor's Canon of the Inner Chi. Level 4/12. Cultivation method: Bajiquan Scripture. Easy. Yang Family's Spear Scripture. Advanced. Art of War. Omitted. Skills: Advanced Detection, Advanced Weapon Proficiency, Savage Beast Taming Technique. Basic. Mount. Omitted. Accessory. Omitted. Armor. Omitted. Weapon: Demonic Spear. Purple gold. Special items: Cooling Pearl, North Sea Harbor Treasure Map 1, etc. After players broke through level 50, the difficulty of leveling up increased once again. 5.5 months had passed since the end of the Zhuolu battle, but Ouyang Shua had only risen from level 48 to level 55. Among the acquired attributes, once the acquired attributes exceeded 80 points, every increase required 5 free attribute points. Once the acquired attributes exceeded 90 points, every increase required 10 free attribute points. Ouyang Shua decided that once the commander attribute reached 80 points, he would add points to a force. When the force attribute also reached 80 points, he would start adding points to the Luo Commander attribute. His current stats were still far from Luo Shixin's, and he was even further from Shi Wansue's. He was basically equivalent to an intermediate general. Last month, Ouyang Shua had broken through to the 4th level of the Yellow Emperor's Canon of the Inner Qi. His maximum inner force had doubled to 10,000 points. He could now circulate it 12 times a day, increasing his inner force by 10 points every day. In a day, he could increase his inner force by 120 points. He still needed a month to break through to the 5th level. More importantly, Ouyang Shua felt that after breaking through to the 4th level, be it the number of circulations or the increase in inner force per day, they had basically reached their limit. If he didn't have any other fortuitous encounters, it would be very difficult for him to improve again. Ouyang Shua's mount, armor, and weapon were all purple gold grade. The only shortcoming was his accessories. He only had the black iron grade Ring of Courage, and the silver grade Strength of Barbarism, which were a little embarrassing. Ouyang Shua closed his stats panel and left the first workshop. As soon as he returned to the manor, Lei Sun was already waiting for him. Although Lei Sun had participated in the recruit training in the western suburbs, the military intelligence department hadn't completely stopped operating. Important information would still be reported to Ouyang Shua. Marquis, there's the latest news from the plains. Ouyang Shua was already mentally prepared to see Lei Sun. It had been 3 months since Operation Wildfire, which aimed to break the balance between the nomadic tribes in the plains. There should be an outcome by now. In these 3 months, Ouyang Shua didn't relax his surveillance of the plains. After Operation Wildfire, the Sky Boundary tribe was defeated in the western part of the town. They couldn't rebuild the western part of the town in a short period of time and lost their deterrence against the small and medium-sized tribes in the west. The medium-sized tribes in the west were the first to launch an attack. They ignored the Sky Boundary tribe's warning and brazenly invaded the small tribes next to them. They plundered their cattle, sheep, and people and took over their farms. In the end, the Sky Boundary tribe only gave a verbal warning and didn't take any further military actions. Such actions were naturally interpreted by the other tribes as the Sky Boundary tribe losing their deterrence. Therefore, larger-scale annexation operations were carried out in the east, south, and north at the same time. For a time, the flames of war raged on the plains. The market outside of Friendship County benefited from this. They used food and iron ore to exchange for a large number of cyan beetle horses and equipped the 2nd Brigade. To be continued. Chapter 257. The spy reports that the grasslands have regained their peace, Lei Sun said. According to the intelligence agency's spy, the small tribes on the grasslands had all disappeared after 3 months of war. They were either annexed by the surrounding mid-sized tribes or merged into the Sky Order tribe. The entire grasslands now only have the Sky Order tribe at the center and 8 surrounding mid-sized tribes, 1 in the north and south, and 3 in the east and west. The Sky Abundant tribe to the north of Friendship County has annexed the small tribes in the east after annexing the Mercy tribe to the west, becoming the only tribe in the south. Their strength has increased greatly. Ouyang Shua nodded. What he was concerned about now was what the grasslands tribes would do next. Are there signs of the mid-sized tribes forming an alliance? Ouyang Shua asked. According to normal tactics, the best choice would be for the mid-sized tribes to unite and eliminate the Sky Order tribe. The problem was that although the Sky Order tribe had been destroyed in the west, they were still the greatest power on the grasslands and had accumulated power for a long time. They couldn't make up their minds to make a move against the Sky Order tribe in such a short time. The 8 mid-sized tribes have indeed formed a loose alliance. The alliance hasn't taken action due to the lack of a powerful figure. On the contrary, the mid-sized tribes on the east and west sides have had many conflicts in the process of annexing the small tribes. It's very difficult for them to work together. Ouyang Shua smiled coldly. This is the evil of human nature. Who knows, the mid-sized tribes on the east and west sides are still scheming against each other. Marquis is wise. There are indeed signs. The crux of the problem is how we should intervene and muddy the waters again. As one of the three heavyweights of the intelligence agency, Lei Sun had a unique strategic vision and was very sensitive to intelligence. Marquis, there's another piece of information. According to the spy's report, after the sky-abundant tribe annexed the small tribes in the east, the tribe's confidence soared and their ambitions swelled. Some of the nobles in the tribe have turned their greedy eyes to Friendship County. Ouyang Shua's eyes turned cold. You're saying that the sky-abundant tribe has designs on Friendship County? That's a possibility. Marquis, think about it. The market outside of Friendship County has a lot of goods traded every day. Previously, they were busy dealing with the small tribes and could only obediently trade at the market. Now that the annexation war has ended, the nomadic tribe's nature of plundering has once again been exposed, Lei Sun calmly analyzed. Lei Sun's information had opened up Ouyang Shua's train of thought. A bolt of lightning flashed in his mind, and he suddenly had an idea. He then said in an awe-inspiring tone, "Since that's the case, we might as well beat them at their own game. We'll eliminate the heavenly abundant tribe, intimidate them, and forcefully intervene in the affairs of the prairie." You're right. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. I reckon that it's not just the sky-abundant tribe, the other tribes are also restless. But, Lei Sun was a little hesitant. If we do this, won't the tribes of the prairie unite against a common enemy? What if they put aside their internal conflicts and unite against a common enemy? Ouyang Shua nodded appreciatively and said, "Of course we can't rule out this possibility. Therefore, the first thing we need to do is to destroy their alliance, so that the other medium-sized tribes have no time to care about them. Didn't you say that the middle-sized tribes in the east and west sides didn't get along? Arrange for spies to sow discord between them, add fuel to the fire, and make them fight each other." Understood. Lei Sun felt a heavy burden on his shoulders. From November 2nd to November 5th, the prairie, which had just regained its peace, became noisy again. In just a few days, 5 or 6 robberies happened in succession in the border areas of the 6 medium-sized tribes on the east and west side. The robbers were experienced and their goals were clear. They didn't leave anyone alive. None of the herdsmen at the border were spared. Their whole families were either killed or their cattle and sheep were robbed. The bloodstains told of the endless desolation. All the signs showed that the murderers had crossed the border to kill people, and the spearhead was directed at the tribes on the opposite side. The hatred within the tribes was fully aroused. Voices asking for battle rose one after another. The higher-ups of the tribes naturally wouldn't be so reckless. They were worried that someone was deliberately sowing discord. The target of suspicion was naturally the Sky Mark tribe, which had been silent for 3 months. They all agreed that the Sky Mark tribe had planned this series of robberies. Their goal was naturally to destroy the alliance of medium-sized tribes and solve the crisis of extinction. Before the higher-ups could investigate clearly, the nobles in the tribe began to be assassinated. They either died in their own tents or in the wilderness. For a moment, the wind was blowing and the cranes were in a state of panic. At this moment, the 2nd Brigade stationed in the northern barracks left the barracks in the name of training. They crossed the Friendship River with great fanfare and disappeared. Not long after the 2nd Brigade left, a large batch of iron ore and grain was transported to the warehouse in the market outside Friendship County. The inadvertently scattered iron ore dazzled the eyes of the nomads who were trading in the market. In the tent of the chief of the Sky Mark tribe. "Chief, this is a great opportunity. We can't hesitate anymore. As neighbors of Friendship County, the movements of the northern barracks and the market naturally couldn't be hidden from the eyes of the Sky Mark tribe. They were already eager to make a move. When they got the news, they were excited. Yes, Chief. As long as we arrange a 1,000-man army, we can definitely take the market. Sitting in the seat of honor, Dariachi frowned and said in a deep voice, "Use your brains. There are too many flaws in Friendship County's actions. It's obviously a trap." "Chief, whether it's a trap or not, the final competition is still military strength. As long as we take the market, what can the army of Friendship County do to us? Even if it's a trap, we have to make them suffer." The one who spoke was the tribe's general, General Hyukitu, Dariachi's confidant. Yes. Huchitu's opinion was unanimously agreed by everyone. Dariachi's heart skipped a beat. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted by the market's resources. But as the chief of the tribe, he was more cautious when considering problems. "Huchitu, what you said is not unreasonable. The problem is that there have been a series of assassinations in the grasslands these days. A storm is coming. It's not a good time to act rashly. Chief, I think that this is the reason why we should be more decisive. We should take this opportunity to obtain a large amount of iron ore and grain. Only then will we be invincible." Huchitu's attitude was firm. Huchitu's opinion coincided with that of the other nobles in the tribe. Dariachi sighed in his heart. Huchitu's opinion was enlightening. It made him wonder if he was too conservative. If one wanted to dominate, it was good to be cautious, but if one was too cautious, they would miss a great opportunity. To be continued. Chapter 258. The Han people had a good saying, "If you don't take advantage of the heavens, you will be punished. If you don't take advantage of the situation, you will be punished." Alright. Dariachi made up his mind. "Huchitu, I order you to lead 1,000 men and take down the market." Dariachi lost his usual calmness. Under the impact of victory, the incitement of the nobles, and the temptation of benefits, he became fanatical and completely dragged the sky-abundant tribe into the abyss of hell. Yes, Huchitu was full of confidence. On the 6th day of the 11th month, when Friendship County was defenseless, the sky-abundant tribe's Chiliarch Huchitu led a large army and suddenly crossed the moat outside Friendship County, raiding the market. The army chased away the merchants who were doing business in the market and plundered all the goods. In the end, they did not forget to set the market on fire and burn it to the ground. Amidst the flames, the army left with a large amount of spoils of war. The market outside Friendship County had long become an important place for nomadic tribes to trade. Every tribe, including the Sky-Abundant tribe, had merchants stationed at the market. The Sky-Abundant tribe's actions were like a hurricane that spread throughout the grassland. When the tribes received the news, some were envious, some were afraid. Most of them were regretful. They regretted that they did not think of letting the despicable Sky-Abundant tribe get ahead of them. The victors were full of themselves. When large amounts of iron ore and food were successfully transported back to the tribe's headquarters, the entire tribe was in an uproar. That night a grand bonfire party was held. Even Dariachi could not believe it. He was glad that he did not miss this opportunity. According to statistics, the food seized this time was enough for the tribe to use for half a year. The iron ore could be used to forge countless arrows, sabers, and armor. The Sky-Abundant tribe was one step closer to dominating the grasslands. The next day, before the afterglow of the party had faded, the envoy from Friendship County had arrived. The envoy strongly condemned the Sky-Abundant tribe's plundering and demanded that the tribe return all the goods and compensate with 500 green beetle horses to compensate for the losses of Friendship County. Ha 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 ha, the envoy's words were mocked by the nobles of the tribe. The envoy's expression did not change, he was calm and composed. Dariachi sat at the head of the tent and shook his head in amusement. What if I say no? If your tribe refuses, we can only meet on the battlefield. How arrogant. Do you know who you are talking to? Hyukitu berated. The success of the raid had greatly increased his prestige in the tribe, and he was now seen as the tribe's hero. The emissary's eyes narrowed. In a neither servile nor overbearing manner, he turned to look at Hu Chitu and calmly said, "You must be General Hu Chitu who led the raid on the market, right? Our Marquis said that the culprit must be punished." "You?" Hu Chitu was enraged, his blood boiling. "How dare you? See if I don't kill you!" As he spoke, he unsheathed the scimitar at his waist and walked towards the emissary. "Wait!" Suddenly, Dariachi stopped Hu Chitu and asked in confusion, "What did you just say, Marquis? A small Yi county dares to call itself a Marquis?" Facing the overbearing Hu Chitu, the emissary was not afraid at all. His expression did not change, as if he did not exist. Hearing Dariachi's question, he turned his head and said, "There is no room for reconciliation for insulting the Marquis. Farewell." "Stop right there!" Hukitu shouted at the emissary and sneered. "Still want to leave? What? You want to kill me, an emissary? Bullsh *t emissary, go to hell!" Hu Chitu raised his scimitar and slashed down. "Stop!" Dariachi shouted in time and said in a deep voice, "The Han people have a saying, when two countries are at war, envoys are not to be killed. Don't let outsiders think that our grassland tribes are uncultured. Let him go." "Chief." Hu Chitu was unwilling to give up. "I said, let him go." Dariachi was a little angry. He found that Hu Chitu was getting carried away. Yes. Hu Chitu was smart enough to detect the displeasure in the chief's tone and retreated unhappily. Dariachi looked at the emissary and said, "Go back and tell your so-called Marquis not to humiliate himself." The emissary shook his head in amusement and walked out of the tent in silence. As early as when the spies from the Military Intelligence Department were dispatched, the military office had already begun to mobilize the army. After 2 annexations, the population of the sky-abundant tribe had exceeded 8,000 people. Based on the nomadic tribe's tradition of all citizens being soldiers, the tribe's regular army had expanded from 1,000 men to 3,000 men. In this battle, Ouyang Shua did not mobilize the troops from the western and eastern barrack. They were busy suppressing the bandit. If they were to be conscripted here at the last minute, not only would it require a lot of manpower, but it would also easily disrupt the bandit suppression deployment. The troops on the expedition included the 2nd Brigade of the 1st Division that had temporarily withdrawn to the base camp, the Imperial Guard Brigade that was undergoing training in the western suburbs recruit camp, the City Guard Brigade of Shanghai County, the City Guard Brigade of Poole County, and the City Guard Brigade of Yi County. There were a total of 5 brigades with 12,500 soldiers, which was more than 4 times the number of the Tianfeng tribe's army. Other than the Shanghai County City Guards Brigade, the Poole Water County City Guards Brigade and the Friendship County Guards Brigade had only been established for a month. After forming an army, they did not have the opportunity to participate in actual combat, so their combat power was slightly weaker. Ouyang Shua mainly relied on the Forbidden Brigade and the 2nd Brigade, these 2 trump-card brigades. These 2 brigades were already equipped with green beetle horses, radiant armor, and long lances. The blue beetle horses of the 1st Division's 2nd Brigade were fully equipped with armor, becoming a true heavy cavalry. As for the Praetorian Brigade, in order to maintain sufficient mobility, they voluntarily gave up on their warhorses and armor. The sudden military operation forced the training in the western suburbs recruit camp to be suspended. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, the 10 instructors of the Rattlesnake mercenary group had already been teleported back to Jianya. After the war ended, they would return to Shanghai County to continue their recruit training. Gaia First Year, November 8, Yi County. On the city wall, the Shanghai County Lord's flag slowly rose, shining brightly under the sunlight. It was a declaration that the forces of Shanghai County had officially invaded the grasslands, revealing their long hidden claws and teeth. Facing the morning sun, the soldiers of the 5 brigades lined up neatly, waiting for the Marquis' inspection. Ouyang Shua, accompanied by Wang Feng, Lin Yi, and other generals, went up to the high platform to inspect the troops. He issued a demand for annihilation, accusing the Tianfeng tribe of neglecting their cooperative relationship, brazenly attacking the Yi County market, and plundering resources. Not only that, but they also rejected the messenger's terms of reconciliation, looking down on Shanghai County, and in order to defend their honor, they could only fight. Fight, fight, fight. Tens of thousands of soldiers roared, determined to defend the honor of their territory. The military formation emitted a monstrous aura, bringing with it blood and fire, sweeping over, threatening to drown the grasslands, turning it into a sea of blood. Ouyang Shuo stood on the high platform in the eye of the storm, issuing orders, dictating everything. Such an aura, such a lineup, even if Ouyang Shuo was reincarnated, he could not help but feel his blood boil. To be continued. Chapter 259. W equals backslash 2p h e gh underscore e, or as such, he commanded an invincible army, turning swords into plows, sweeping across the world. After the ceremony, Ouyang Shuo began to call out the generals. Wang Feng, here. Wang Feng stepped out and knelt on one knee. You will lead the Forbidden Brigade and guard the left side as the general of the left side. Yes. Lin Yi. I'm here. Lin Yi stepped out as well. You will lead the 2nd Brigade of the 1st Division and guard the right side as the general of the right side. Yes. Ouyang Shuo arranged for elite cavalry units on the left and right side. The 3 brigades of the city guards formed the middle army, with Ouyang Shuo personally in charge. Shanghai County and Yi County city guards formed the front line, while Poole Water County city guards formed the back line as the reserve force. In the city guards brigade, the archers took the vanguard, the shield soldiers at the back, and the cavalry on the flank. Such an army was invincible. After the roll call, Ouyang Shuo pulled out the Tang sword from his waist and waved it forward. Move out! The vast army moved out immediately. Other than the sound of footsteps and horses neighing, there was no other sound. The army crossed the moat outside the city and marched towards Tianfeng tribe. Dari Achi was not an ordinary person. Although he appeared arrogant when he received the messenger, he had been guarding Yi County ever since the messenger left. Such a large-scale ceremony outside Yi County naturally did not escape his eyes. The huge army of the opponent, the magnificent army, all of them were terrifying. The cavalry from the North Barracks returned at the right time, giving him a wake-up call. The Lord's flag that was raised on the city walls of Yi County made Dari Achi at a loss. Only then did he know that Yi County was just a subsidiary territory of the opponent. The real base camp had yet to appear. At this moment, Dari Achi finally understood the meaning of the marquee that the messenger had mentioned yesterday. One could not be called a marquee without sweeping across all 4 sides. Inside the tribe's tent, Dari Achi furrowed his brows and flew into a rage. Conspiracy! This is a conspiracy! A big conspiracy against our sky-abundant tribe. The joy of victory had long since vanished, and all that was left was endless regret. Indeed, Ouyang Shuo's string of actions, like throwing out bait, sending emissaries, and issuing orders, were all for the sake of occupying the moral high ground. In this way, the sky-abundant tribe was unreasonable and unreasonable. They were in the wrong first, so it was only natural that they would be attacked. Naturally, they would not be able to incite the other tribes to unite against a common enemy. Patriarch, what should we do now? The tribal nobles were like birds startled by the mere twang of a bow. What can we do? It's just a battle, Huchitu, the representative of the pro-war faction, said indifferently. Shut up. Dari Achi was furious. If it wasn't for Huchitu's instigation, he wouldn't have been in this mess today. Now, a disaster was upon him, yet this person was still so arrogant. He was truly foolish. General Hyukitu must be joking. The other party has an army of over 10,000. How are we supposed to fight them? Some nobles were dissatisfied. When they conquered the market, the nobles admired Hyukitu. Now that the tables had turned, the nobles' attitudes had also taken a 180-degree turn, and they were now blaming Hyukitu for his reckless actions. Little did they know that the ones who had advocated attacking the market were the nobles. After being choked by the patriarch and the nobles, Huchitu's face turned red with anger. Anxious to save his image, he said fiercely, "How can the other party's combat power compare to us, the children of the grassland?" Dariachi shook his head, not wanting to pay attention to Huchitu. He turned to the nobles and said in a deep voice, "The only thing we can do now is to either fight or ask for help. What is everyone's opinion? Tell me." Ask for help? Ask for help from whom? Right now we are in the wrong. Those tribes are waiting to see us make a fool of ourselves. It's already good enough that they didn't hit us when we're down. How could they possibly help us? That's right, that's right. Dariachi held his forehead with his hand. He had a terrible headache. He said irritably, "This won't do, that won't do. Then what do you guys think we should do?" The nobles looked at each other, not knowing how to respond. "How about we return the loot to them?" One of the nobles said weakly. It's too late. We agreed to the other party's messenger's conditions yesterday. We just refused, but the other party has already gathered their army and issued a declaration of war. It's obvious that they don't want to let this go." Gloomy clouds shrouded the tent, and the atmosphere became more and more oppressive. At this moment, one of the nobles stood up and said tentatively, How about we surrender?" As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. It was like opening Pandora's box. Surrender? The nobles stammered, their eyes flashing. No. How can the children of the grasslands surrender without a fight? Huchitu shouted unwillingly. Dariachi sat in the seat of honor. He felt a chill in his heart. He knew that the worst result was coming. He was powerless to stop it. The cowardice and fear in the eyes of the nobles was as obvious as the cattle and sheep on the grassland. Although the nobles were hesitant, in fact, they were the core of the tribe and had the right to speak. Since the nobles had already decided to surrender, even if he, as the patriarch, did not agree, he could not completely mobilize the army. One must know that the logistics lifeline of the army was in the hands of the nobles. Dariachi closed his eyes, his expression desolate. His imperial hegemony had come to nothing. After a long time, Dariachi said, "Hai Rigu, I will leave the surrender negotiations to you." Hai Rigu, the nobles who proposed to surrender, stood up and said, "Yes. Patriarch, you can't, the children still have the strength to fight." Huchitu tried to stop him. "Guards." Dariachi did not look at Huchitu, but called for the guards. "Here." 4 guards walked into the tent. "Take Huchitu away and put him in prison." Dariachi knew that one of the conditions put forward by the other party's envoy was to hand over the leader, otherwise Huchitu would not be able to escape death. In order to prevent any accidents, Dariachi simply made up his mind and locked Huchitu up first. "Patriarch." Huchitu's face was full of shock and he was almost speechless. To be honest, Huchitu was Dariachi's true confidant. Locking Huchitu up was also very painful. Unfortunately, the situation did not allow him to show favoritism. "Take him away." Dariachi did not dare to look at Huchitu's desperate eyes and said ruthlessly, "Yes." The guards were all hardcore loyal to the patriarch. Although they were shocked, they did not hesitate to carry out the order, disarm Huchitu and take him away. Huchitu's heart turned cold, his heart was like dead ashes. He did not resist and obediently allowed himself to be taken away. "Disperse," Dariachi said weakly. With his hegemony gone, Dariachi's spirit, energy, and spirit also disappeared, losing the heroic appearance he had in the past. When the nobles saw the state of their patriarch, they did not know what to feel. One by one, they silently left. To be continued. Chapter 260. It was beyond Ouyang Shua's expectations to be able to take down the Tianfeng tribe without bloodshed. As soon as the army arrived at the outskirts of the Tianfeng tribe, they met the messenger, Hai Rigu, who had rushed over to surrender. After figuring out the messenger's intentions, Ouyang Shua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that his plan would be so effective. He had reached the realm of subduing the enemy without fighting. Even so, Ouyang Shua did not let down his guard. He ordered the army to continue moving. The mighty army was like a hurricane, sweeping toward the Tianfeng tribe. Further away, light cavalry could be seen flashing by from time to time. They were scouts sent by other tribes. Ouyang Shua did not stop them. He openly displayed the military power of Shanhai County. This was how nomadic tribes were. They feared the strong and bullied the weak. If they did not do this, they would not be able to intimidate the other heroes. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the army of tens of thousands marched forward in an orderly manner. If one did not see it with their own eyes, they would not be able to understand how shocking it was. The largest tribe in the grasslands, the Tianji tribe, had a total of more than 10,000 soldiers. After the army arrived at the Tianfeng tribe's base camp, the herdsmen walked out of their tents curiously. Seeing such a military formation, they could not help but secretly rejoice that the chief did not choose war. Otherwise, who knew how many of their sons would have died on the battlefield? In the end, they still ended up with their entire tribe being wiped out. Ouyang Shua ordered the Yi County City Guards Brigade to enter the base camp and take over the defense. The next step was to disarm the enemy. The 3,000-man teams of the Tianfeng tribe were stripped of their weapons and armor and detained separately. Whether it was the army or the common people, they would more or less have some resistance towards the victors. Ouyang Shua was naturally very careful, so as not to fail miserably. After he was done, Ouyang Shua was completely relieved. He began to meet the important figures of the Tianfeng tribe. Tianfeng tribe tent. Ouyang Shua was respectfully invited to sit at the seat of honor. Dari Achi led a group of nobles and knelt down. "Greetings, Marquis." Ouyang Shua noticed that Dari Achi's expression was somewhat bitter. He was even more embarrassed when he knelt down. Things had happened in a hurry. For a moment, Ouyang Shua did not know how to settle them. He said, "I am deeply gratified that all of you have surrendered sincerely. I would like to ask you to move to Shanhai County and share your wealth. How about that?" The nobles looked at each other. This was a disguised form of house arrest. But now that they were meat on the chopping block, they had no choice but to lower their heads and obediently said, "Thank you for your grace." Since the other party had taken the initiative to surrender, Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't go on a rampage and do anything that was out of bounds. However, Ouyang Shua did not feel at ease leaving these nobles in the tribe. Thus, he compromised by moving them to Shanhai County and settling them there for the rest of their lives. That was the best choice. In this way, they could also serve as an example to the other tribes on the grassland. If any tribe could not survive, they could take the initiative to surrender to Shanhai County if they had nowhere else to go. That was also an acceptable way out. Next, it was time to deal with the Sky Abundant tribe. In the long run, taking down the Tianfeng tribe was of great significance. It would announce that Shanhai County was forcefully involved in the affairs of the grasslands. It would provide a reliable springboard for them to unify the grasslands in the future. As for the tangible benefits in front of him, the most important were the green beetle horses and the 3,000 elites of the Tianfeng tribe. According to statistics, other than the 6,000 green beetle horses for the 3,000 soldiers, the Tianfeng tribe still had more than 3,500 green beetle horses. How could Ouyang Shua not be excited? The 3,000 elites were dispersed by Ouyang Shua and assigned to the 2nd, 4th, and 5th Brigades of the 1st Division. The 3,000 cavalrymen who were replaced were reorganized into the Shanghai County Independent Brigade and stationed at the Northern Barrack. Among the officers, the 10-man commanders were appointed platoon leaders, and the centurions were appointed platoon leaders. As for the 3 Kiliarchs, they would face different fate. Needless to say, Hu Chitu was imprisoned. He would be transferred to the Shanghai County Prison and handed over to the Sentencing Bureau. According to the crimes he had committed, he would probably spend the rest of his life in prison. The remaining 2 Kiliarchs were called Mo Zhigan and Xiao Bu. Mo Zhigan was 45 years old and was a veteran in the army. He was over 40 years old and was considered old in the grassland tribes. Ouyang Shua arranged for him to retire to Shanghai County. What Ouyang Shua admired the most was the young Xiao Bu. Xiao Bu was 26 years old and was quite famous in the grassland. He was not a member of the Tianfeng tribe, but a member of a small tribe that had been destroyed by the Tianfeng tribe. Dari Achi appreciated his talent and made an exception to promote him to a Chiliarch. Name: Xiao Bu. Gold. Identity: Shanghai County resident. Occupation: Intermediate General. Loyalty: 75 Commander, 55 Force, 70 Intelligence, 42 Politics, 24 Specialty. Rapid Attack increases troop movement speed by 10, Powerful Shooting increases arrow attack by 10. Skill: Jabiz archery. Equipment: Condor shooting bow. Remarks: practiced archery since young and is very accurate. Later joined the army. Forthright and cherishes his subordinate. After checking Xiao Bu's attributes, Ouyang Shua did not hesitate and immediately appointed him as the commander of the Independent Brigade. With the help of Xiao Bu, who was familiar with the grassland, Ouyang Shua believed that the northern barracks would be as solid as a rock. After the reorganization of the army was completed, the 2nd, 4th, 5th Brigades, Independent Brigade, and the Royal Guard Brigade of the 1st Division were all equipped with Green Beetle horses. The remaining 2,000 Green Beetle horses were sent by Ouyang Shua to the Gale Valley Military Horse Farm. The main camp of Tianfeng tribe was changed into the northern barracks under Ouyang Shua's orders. The commander of the northern barracks was still Lin Yi, while Xiao Bu was appointed as the deputy commander. Other than the nobles and their families who were moved to Shanghai County, the normal herdsmen were put under the jurisdiction of Yi County. Due to the nature of the nomadic tribes, Ouyang Shua allowed the herdsmen to build settlements outside the city. As for the destroyed market, it had lost its usefulness as the situation in the grassland changed. No tribe was willing to trade with them anymore, so Ouyang Shua decided not to rebuild it, and the market became history. The change in Tianfeng tribe was like a big show, shocking all the tribes in the grassland. Only then did they know that in the south of the grassland, there was a territory called Shanghai County that had been eyeing them. All of a sudden, all the tribes were in danger. Tianfeng tribe's surrender was the best proof of Shanghai County's military strength. Not to mention that after Tianfeng tribe's surrender, Shanghai County's strength would increase even further. Faced with this change, the cowardly began to group up. The ambitious ones, on the other hand, turned their attention to their neighbors. The best way to establish a foothold in the grassland was to continue annexing and expanding their strength. These mid-sized tribes wouldn't dare to touch Shanghai County. What happened to Tianfeng tribe was a good example. They didn't want to go for wool and come home shorn. Who knew how many troops Shanghai County had? To be continued. Chapter 261. By the time Ouyang Shua finished dealing with the affairs of the Sky-Rich tribe, 2 days had already passed. On the way back to Shanghai County, Ouyang Shua heard a system announcement. System announcement. China has successfully promoted 100 counties, triggering the battle system. The third battle, the Battle of Chongping, will officially begin in 3 days. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder. The Battle of Chongping is a non-compulsory battle mission. Only counties and above are eligible to participate. It was unexpected but reasonable. The requirement to participate in the Battle of Chongping was raised by a large margin. Only counties and above could participate, which meant that the number of lords participating would not exceed 100. Gaia's setting was undoubtedly widening the gap between the lords. Those that had not yet been promoted to a county would lose the opportunity to participate in the battle, which also meant that they would lose the opportunity to gain achievement points. As a result, their road to becoming a county would become even more bumpy. It was almost certain that after missing this golden opportunity, these territories would lose the right to fight for supremacy. Apart from a few lucky ones who could catch up, the rest would basically face the fate of being swallowed up by the surrounding territories. As more and more territories were promoted to county, battles between territories would break out from time to time. Shanhai County was no longer the only one. The only special thing was that Shanhai County had gone further. As the threats were eliminated one by one, Ouyang Shuo set his sights on unifying the Lianzhou Basin. Of course, the prerequisite was to first become a county city. Shanhai County's population had already reached 100,000 and was ready to be promoted at any time. When the Battle of Chongping was over, Ouyang Shuo would apply to the system for promotion. He didn't know what kind of test he would have to go through to become a county city. Just as Ouyang Shuo was thinking about the future of his territory, another shocking message came from the national channel. Dichen, how can you say you have no clothes? The Yan-Huang Alliance has chosen the state of Zhao for the Battle of Chongping. Does the Shanhai Alliance dare to accept the challenge and compete on the battlefield? The players were in an uproar. This was the second time that Di Chen had provoked Ouyang Shuo. The difference was that this time it was in the name of the Yan-Huang Alliance. Evidently, the Yan-Huang Alliance had reached a consensus on this matter. It wasn't Di Chen's personal action, so the meaning behind it was naturally extraordinary. More importantly, everyone knew that the Battle of Chongping had ended with the state of Qin's victory. The Yan-Huang Alliance had chosen the state of Zhao's camp, which meant that they had the confidence to turn defeat into victory. With such a situation, Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to agree. Ouyang Shuo was speechless. Even if he used his toes to think, he could guess that the Yan-Huang Alliance must have received news of the Battle of Chongping in advance, and had long since made preparations. Only then would they have the confidence to challenge the alliance of mountains and seas. This time, the situation was completely reversed. Before Ouyang Shuo could say anything, the alliance channel had already exploded. This was especially true for the siege lion. It was the most ferocious, and it looked like it wanted to challenge Di Chen to a duel. Even the usually calm dragon seeking acupoint and the others were indignant and requested to fight. On the other hand, Feng Qihuang had made the same conjecture as Ouyang Shuo. Even so, it was not enough to quell the flames of war in everyone's hearts. "Wui, what do you think?" Bai Hua asked. The channel instantly went silent. Clearly, everyone had tacitly passed the decision to Ouyang Shuo. Ouyang Shuo grinned and said, "If he wants to fight, then let's fight." Agreed. The members of the alliance quickly reached an agreement. The honor of the Mountains and Seas Alliance could not be challenged. Although Ouyang Shuo had spoken such bold words, he did not underestimate his opponent. This was a battle that he could not afford to lose. The next day, the members of the Mountains and Seas Alliance gathered in Shanhai County to discuss countermeasures. Among all the members, only Swan and I came to Shanhai County for the first time. Swan and I, like Bai Hua and Dragon Seeking Acupoint, had obtained a Silver Village Creation Token and a King Summoning Talisman for the Village Creation mission. Unfortunately, he had only summoned a civil official, who could not be of any use in battle. Xiongba also suffered the same fate as Swan and I. During the Battle of Mai, Ouyang Shuo did not see any historical generals by his side. However, Wandering Huan had a historical general by his side. The last time Bai Hua and the others had come to Shanhai County was when it had been promoted to a rank 1 county and had defended against the bandit. Half a year had passed, and Shanhai County had changed greatly. Apart from the Lord's mansion, there were no traces of the past. Even the Lord's mansion had changed its plaque. Looking at the huge plaque that read Marquis Lian Province's Mansion, Siege Lion said enviously, "When can my Lord's mansion have a plaque like this? It's so cool." "You should give up on that idea," Dragon-seeking Acupoint teased. "Wui, it's getting more and more shocking every time." Bai Hua sighed. The development of Shanhai County had never made anyone compare themselves to it. They could only look up to it. "This time we have to take a good look and learn from Big Brother Wui." Swan and I, who had always been silent, could not help but speak up with a smile. Shanhai County's development plan was like a living textbook for territory development. Ouyang Shua smiled. "Come, let's talk inside." He led everyone to the front courtyard. Everyone took their seats and exchanged greetings with each other. Among the members, Swan and I and Song Wen were new members, so they took this opportunity to talk to the others and get to know each other better. "What are everyone's thoughts on this battle?" Ouyang Shua asked straightforwardly. Everyone present was an elite among the lords. Even if they did not know much about the Battle of Chongping, after the system announcement, they had enough time to look up the details of the battle through the forums. Feng Qiuhuang was still the most enthusiastic one. She took the lead and spoke first. "This battle concerns the success or failure of the Shanhai Alliance and Yan-Huang Alliance. Its importance cannot be overemphasized. The Yan-Huang Alliance taking the lead is both good and bad." "What do you mean?" "There's no need to talk about the benefits. In the previous 2 battles, Wui has already proved that taking the lead and making preparations in advance can be effective. Whether it's the compass chariot or the crossbow, they can both determine victory or defeat. The downside is obvious. The Yan-Huang Alliance is going all out this time, and if they lose, they'll lose all their face, and they won't be able to compete with us anymore," Feng Qiuhuang said confidently. Bai Hua frowned. "We can't be so optimistic. Di Chen and the others have been bullied by Wui a few times, so they've learned their lesson. If they didn't have some confidence, why would they openly provoke us on the national channel?" Ouyang Shua bitterly smiled and shook his head. Why did Bai Hua think that he was a bully? Feng Qiuhuang declined to comment. "I'm not being blindly optimistic. Compared to the Yan-Huang Alliance, we have our own advantages, which is that our nobility ranks are higher than theirs." Chapter 262. That's right. Di Chen and the others are only second-rank marquises and can only lead 1,000 troops at most. On the other hand, Big Brother is a third-rank marquis and can lead 10,000 troops, which is equivalent to 20 new feudal lords. Adding us, our total troops will be over 20,000. Conservatively speaking, we will make up more than 25% of the total troops in this battle. In the end, strength speaks louder. The Siege Lion agreed. "Don't forget, the Battle of Chongping involves millions of troops. What can our 20,000 men do? The deciding factor is the armies of Qin and Zhao." Dragon-seeking Acupoint wasn't so optimistic. Ouyang Shua didn't participate in the discussion and only spoke up after hearing them talk about the army. "What can an army of 20,000 do? That will depend on what kind of troops we bring." Wui is right. Although we can't be the main force, we can be the vanguard. Feng Qiuhuang nodded in agreement. "Looks like we'll have to spill the beans again. Let's stop guessing. What kind of troops should we send?" Mulan Yu pouted. Ouyang Shua looked at Zhu Shu and said, "Mr. Zhu Shu should answer this question." As the chief strategist of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, Zhu Shu didn't want to pass on this responsibility. Thanks to the powerful Gaia, these historical figures had a deep understanding of war and didn't need to give any special instructions. Zhu Shu stood up and bowed to the feudal lords, saying, "The troops that can be sent are infantry, archers, and cavalry. Qin is proficient in both infantry and cavalry and is famous for their valiant infantry. Archers that aren't organized can't be of much use in such a large-scale battle. Among the Alliance's infantry, other than the mountain barbarians' heavy infantry, there probably isn't any unit that can contend against Qin's infantry. Thus, we can only send the cavalry. But Zhao's cavalry is unparalleled in the world through the reform of the Hu dress and archery. Will it work? Dragon-seeking acupoint raised an objection. I agree with Mr. Zhu Shu, Ouyang Shua said. Shanghai County will send out 10,000 elite cavalry for this battle. The situation before and after the Warring States period is different. Up until the spring and autumn period, battles were fought at a predetermined location. Both sides would get into formation and face each other one by one, just like how nobles dueled. The battles we experienced in Zhuolu and Mai were like this. A huge battle determined the outcome. During the Warring States period, etiquette and music collapse. Wars were fought with the goal of killing the enemy and annexing land. As for the Battle of Chongping, it was a classic case of encirclement and annihilation, so it was necessary to maintain a certain degree of mobility. No matter how powerful Zhao's cavalry is, we can only choose the cavalry. There was a moment of silence in the hall as everyone digested this news. Big brother, you're not even going to bring a trump card like the heavy infantry? The siege lion asked hesitantly. Ouyang Shua shook his head and said, I won't hide it from you guys. The mountain barbarians' heavy infantry has only developed to this point, and there are only 2,000 people in total. The heavy armor they wore could only be used for defense. 2,000 mountain barbarians are like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood in such a big battle. They are unable to play a central role and are unable to cooperate with the Qin infantry. It is better not to bring them. Since Big Brother is willing to cut his losses, I have nothing else to say. Everyone will bring cavalry, the siege lion said with a smile, firmly supporting Ouyang Shua's decision. The others nodded in agreement with Zhu Xing and Ouyang Shua. Seeing that the lords had reached a consensus, Zhu Xing said, There's one more thing I have to remind everyone. Sir, please speak. In the Battle of Chongping, Zhao's logistical support is superior to Qin's. Although Qin has stockpiled large amounts of rations in Yuang Fortress, it is extremely difficult to turn the rations into edible food. Therefore, if possible, it is best for all of you to bring a batch of rations pills to reduce the pressure on Qin's logistical support. Back when Ouyang Shua bought the Rations Pill Manufacturing Technical Manual and Tents Manufacturing Technical Manual, he didn't keep them to himself. He had long revealed the information to his allies. Therefore, other than Wanshe District and Tianshuang District, which were added later, the other territories could produce rations pills and tents. Ouyang Shua predicted that Di Chen and the others might have grasped these two technologies as well. Their family had professionals researching the market, so it was impossible for them to give up on such powerful weapons after the Battle of Zhuolu. After discussing the military preparations, Feng Qiuhuang brought up another question. Wui, do you think we should contact some lords and invite them to join Qin's camp? Ouyang Shua frowned and said, Feng Wu, are you saying that Di Chen and the others will use this opportunity to rope in the lords and cause an imbalance between the two camps? Ouyang Shua immediately understood what Feng Qiuhuang was trying to say. Based on my understanding of them, I am 100% sure that they will do so. These guys can't win in a head-on fight, but they are better at using underhanded means than anyone else. That's right. In the real world, the wave of land acquisition pushed a large portion of the territory to the hands of large and medium-sized forces. They are inextricably linked to the Yan-Huang alliance. Song-Wen, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. Song-Wen, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. He was one of the earliest beneficiaries, so he naturally had a deep understanding of this. Tianshuang district had used the Song clan's powerful influence, and Shanghai districts helped to catch up and become one of the top 100 counties in China. At the same time, those territories that were acquired would naturally develop into the best of the best. A battle between commoner players and nobles? Bian said in a self-mocking tone. He himself had suffered greatly, not being trusted by Di Chen and the others, and was forced to join the Shanghai alliance to seek protection. Ouyang Shua fell silent. Whether he was willing or not, the Shanghai alliance and the Yan Huang alliance each represented these two forces. Although the boundaries weren't very clear, with Feng Chihuang and Song Wen representing the Shanghai alliance, and the Yan Huang alliance having commoner players like Wandering Huan, the overall situation wasn't too bad. What do you guys think? Ouyang Shua didn't make a decision on his own. I think that this kind of thing is completely voluntary. This time, our camps have already been made clear. Every lord has their own considerations on which side to stand on. Those who trust us will naturally choose Qin's camp without us having to persuade them. Those who don't trust us won't have much of an effect even if they try to persuade them. Instead, they'll just be asking for trouble. That's right. Siege Lion expressed his agreement. Bai Hua didn't object either. At the end of the day, everyone had their own pride, and didn't want to ask for help. Ouyang Shua already knew what was going on. He slapped the table and loudly said, "All right, then it's decided. We'll deal with the changes by remaining unchanged. I'd like to see just how much influence the Alliance of Mountains and Seas has among the Lord-class players." Chapter 263. P.S. The map of the Battle of Chongping has been uploaded in the book group album. Those interested can take a look. After sending off the members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, Ouyang Shua began to mobilize the army for the final preparations. The army that was going to battle included Wang Feng's Palace Guard Brigade, Lin Yi's Heavy Cavalry 2nd Brigade, Luo Shixin's Light Cavalry 4th Brigade, and Xiaobu's Light Cavalry Independent Brigade. The 1 SD Division's 1st Brigade guarded the West Barracks, while the 3rd Brigade guarded the East Barrack. Sun Chuanlin's Crossbow Cavalry 5th Brigade was transferred to the North Barracks to assist the remaining 500 cavalry of the Independent Brigade in defending the North Barrack. Of course, Shi Wan Sui and Yi Lai, the two generals, had to go with them. Fortunately, all the divisions were cavalry. Within a day, they had all gathered at the headquarters. In terms of logistics, Ouyang Shua took 200,000 military ration pills from the combat division, enough for the army to use for 20 days. If the war horses were included, it would only last for less than 10 days. Ouyang Shua also wanted to bring more military ration pills. Firstly, the storage space was limited, and secondly, the military factory's production was limited. 200,000 military ration pills was the factory's production for a month and a half. Therefore, unless Qin's logistical support was insufficient, Ouyang Shua would not use them. According to the price of 1 silver per military ration pill, 200,000 military ration pills would be 2,000 gold coins. Adding on 10,000 gold coins for teleportation, Ouyang Shua had already spent 12,000 gold coins before the battle even started. If he couldn't get a good result, it would be a huge loss. Gaia Year 11, 14th day, 9 a.m., the system announcement rang. System announcement. 262 BC, Qin attacked King Yuang of Han. Yuang surrendered to Qin and Shangdang fell. Han was in a panic, and offered Shangdang to appease the Qin army. Governor Feng Ting was unwilling to enter Qin and sent an envoy to King Zhao to surrender. King Zhao accepted Shangdang gladly. The Qin emperor was furious and ordered the left minister Wang Qi to lead an army to attack Shangdang. Zhao Sui ordered Lian Pu to lead reinforcements, and they were locked in a stalemate at Chongping. In the 3rd year, Qin sent Princess Jin to Zhao. In July, the Zhaos changed generals and sent Zhao Kuo to replace Lian Pu. Qin secretly promoted the Lord of Martial Peace, Bai Qi, to the position of great general. Bai Qi took advantage of Zhao Kuo's arrogance and underestimation of the enemy. He adopted a strategy of feigning defeat and retreating, luring the enemy out of their formation, then encircling them and annihilating them. He won the war and killed 200,000 Zhao soldiers who surrendered. The third epic battle, the Battle of Chongping, officially begins. 10,000 elite cavalrymen of Shanhai County lined up in the square, ready to set off. As usual, the requirements to participate in the battle were checked, the number of participants was confirmed, and the faction was chosen. System notice. Congratulations to player who has no clothes for activating the war teleportation array. 10,000 people have been teleported. 10,000 gold has been deducted from player who has no clothes teleportation fee. System notice. Teleportation has begun. After a short period of dizziness, Ouyang Shuo and the others appeared on the battlefield of Chongping. System notification. Welcome to the state of Qin's base camp, Guanglang City. In 262 BC, the state of Qin captured Yianpong, an important city of Han in Hanoi. Yianpong was stationed at the exit of Taihang Xing, the second of the 8 Xing. It was an important stronghold to ensure that Han's Shandong County entered Hanoi and was connected to the area south of the Yellow River. After losing Yianpong, the connection between Shandong County and the capital of Han, Xinjiang, was cut off. To Han, the barren land and sparsely populated Shandong County was a dead land. Hence, Han decided to trade land for peace and cede Shandong County to Qin. However, the governor of Shandong County, Feng Ting, gave Shandong County to Zhao to continue resisting Qin. This led to the war between Qin and Zhao over Shandong, the Battle of Chongping. At that time, the Zhao court had a heated debate on whether to accept Shandong. Lord Pingyuan, Zhao Xing, believed that Zhao could occupy Shandong without sacrificing a single soldier, and agreed to accept it. Lord Pingyang, Zhao Bao, believed that Qin and Zhao's overall national strength was far greater than Zhao's, so he strongly opposed accepting Shandong and Qin. Zhao Kuo, on the other hand, came to the conclusion that Zhao had to accept Shandong. This was because if Qin obtained Shandong County of Han and occupied Huguan, they could attack Zhao's capital, Handan, directly if they attacked Shandong. Because of this, Shandong was of little value to Han, but to Zhao, it was a matter of life and death. On the surface, Qin attacking Shandong was a battle with Han, but in actual fact, it was to prepare for their next attack on Zhao. Hence, regardless of whether they accepted it or not, there would definitely be a battle between Zhao and Qin. If they accepted Shandong, Zhao would be able to gain the initiative and prepare for battle. This was a wise move. In 262 BC, the famous general of Zhao, Lian Pe, led the Zhao army to accept Shandong. At the same time, he set up defenses around Chongping to stop the Qin army. Lian Pe chose to set up defenses around Chongping due to the geographical conditions. Firstly, Chongping was a strategic location in the entire Shandong area with many advantageous military and geographical conditions. The area was mainly hilly, followed by mountainous areas and finally flat plains. The main river was the Dan River, which had 5 main tributaries: Su River, Dongtsang River, Shaodongtsang River, Dongda River and Yonglu River. They formed a network throughout the area and were rich in groundwater. With such a geographical environment, the mountainous areas were dangerous, especially in the west and north where there were forts such as Gao Pass, Chongping Pass and Old Pass that could be defended. As the saying goes, one man can hold the pass against 10,000. The hills were not a hindrance to the movement of the troops but could be used for covert operations. The river valleys and flat plains were ideal for the movement of large troops and the transportation of supplies. All these were advantageous to the main army and disadvantageous to the guest army. Secondly, whether it is Qin attacking Shandong or Handan, there are only 2 strategic routes in the mountains that they can take: namely the western route through Black Ridge and Old Horse Ridge, or the southern route through Yangchangban and Tianjing Pass. Chongping is a strategic shortcut, and it is also a route that they have no other choice but to take. That is to say, as long as Lian Pe had a strong army to defend Chongping, the Qin army would not be able to sneak past Shangdang and get close to Handan. The Zhao army headed west from the capital, Handan, past the fourth of the 8 Xing of Taihang, Fokuxing, then west past Hoku Pass and entered the hinterland of Shangdang. From there they turned southwest and followed the Bajian River, past Ba'i village, past Old Pass and entered Chongping. They then followed the Shaodong Tsang River Valley and passed Jinmen town to Xian. Xian was situated in the middle of the Dan River, where the Dan River and Shaodong Tsang River converged. The terrain was relatively low and humid, open and flat. The two sides of the river were separated by about 10 kilometers of open land. Although there were many hills in the middle, it did not hinder movement. Instead, it was dangerous. One could follow the riverbed of the Dan River to the southeast, or follow the riverbed of the Dan River to the northwest, or follow the riverbed of the Yuan village and Ma village to the southwest. After Lian Pe entered Chongping, he set up the following 3 lines of defense. First, the Old Horse Ridge defense line. In the middle of the Old Horse Ridge was a huge mountain pass, commonly known as Gaoping Pass. There was a steep cliff on the left and a steep stream on the right. There was only one line in the middle to connect the east and west. The mountain pass was 350 meters long from east to west and 1,000 meters wide from north to south. There were river valleys to the west and east of the mountain. The Duansha River's tributary, Yushi River, went west. Although the Guan East was supported by Haoshan Mountain, there were 2 tributaries of the Dan River, Ma Village River and Yuan Village River to the east. The river valleys were good for travel, and it was another important military hub between Shangdang and Hudong. After Lian Pe set up defenses on the Old Horse Ridge, he built 2 cities at the riverbed intersection of the South Horse Village River and the North Horse Village River in the Haoshan Pass. They were the reinforcements for the Old Horse Ridge outpost and formed a triangular formation. The 2 cities were backed by mountains and faced rivers. They were a well-fortified area and could be heavily fortified to reinforce Gaoping Pass at any time. Erlian City followed the Ma Siyuan River and the Yuan Siyuan River to the east. At the confluence of the 2 rivers was Kongying Village, south of the village was the Sioux River, south of the village was the Northern Ridge Mountain, west of the village was the confluence of the Ma Siyuan River and the Yuan Siyuan River, west of which was the Wolf Mountain. This village could be said to be surrounded by mountains and 3 rivers, forming a closed geographical environment. At the same time, the 3 river valleys curved outwards, forming a typical military hub that could be advanced or retreated, easy to defend and hard to attack. Kongying was Guanglang City. It was originally an important backup and supply base for Zhao's Xian family and De Liang Mountain to defend the Old Horse Ridge. Later, it was captured by Qin's left minister Wang Qi and became the base for the Qin army to advance east. The Guanglang city that Ouyang Shua and the rest landed in was here. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's first introduce the other 2 defense lines that Lian Pe set up. Second, the Dan River defense line. The Dan River originates from the Danju Ridge of the Changzi Mountain in Gaoping and flows southeast, from the center of Gaoping through the entire territory, through Jincheng in the south, and finally into the Yellow River in Hunan. The valley is deep and the flow is large. The terrain along the coast is open, making it convenient for large troops to move. Lian Pe made use of this natural barrier to build a second defense line on the east bank of the Dan River. This was the main defense line of the Zhao army. This defense line started from the Xian family's Zhao village and De Liang Mountain on the east bank of the Dan River to Gaoping and Jincheng's upper and lower Qinggong village. From the Xian family's northwest along the east bank of the Dan River were Dianshang, Qijia Courtyard, Weiqing, Sherman, Arrowhead, 3 armies, Mount Hanwang, Yonglu, Chongping, Diaoshan, Water Severing, and Danju Ridge. Daliang Mountain was where Lien Pu stored his grain. From the north, there was Guanjia Ridge and Seven Buddha Mountain. The three mountains were connected and formed one mountain. This mountain was the tallest among the mountains in Gaoping. To the northeast, one could see the Old Pass. To the southwest, one could see the Old Horse Ridge. To the north was Mount Hanwang, one was south and one was north. From a high vantage point, they formed the two eyes of the Zhao army's defense line. They could easily control the situation of the enemy and the enemy on the east and west. From a military geographical point of view, such a situation was extremely advantageous. It was especially important in cold weapons battles and ancient wars without modern means of communication. At the foot of the mountain, there was the Shaodong Tsang River Valley on the left and the Dong Tsang River Valley on the right. They were parallel to the northeast and pointed towards Handan. They could maintain close communication with the rear and ensure the supply of grain. Lien Pu's shogunate was located at Daliang Mountain. Mount Hanwang was located 75 kilometers north of Gaoping. It was the watershed of the Dan River, the Little Eastern Tsang River, and the Yonglu River. This mountain towered into the clouds. If one climbed up and gazed into the distance, they would be able to see the plains, villages, and sceneries on both sides of the Dan River. To the west of Mount Hanwang was the General Ridge. It was almost as tall as the main mountain. From the top, one could see the entire Dan River. Just like how Daliang Mountain was set up for Lien Pu during the 3 Years' War, Hanwang Mountain was set up for General Zhao Kuo during the final battle, and the line from the west of Hanwang Mountain to the Dan River was the main battlefield of the final battle, which was also the central area where the Zhao army was finally surrounded. Chongping Pass was located at the border between Gaoping and Changzi. To the north of the pass was the source of the Zhuozhang River. To the south of the pass was the Dan River. To the east and west of the pass were mountains. The west mountain was Danju Ridge, the highest peak in the area. The north slope of Chongping Pass was relatively flat while the south slope was steep. From the south, one could look down from a high vantage point. Chongping Pass was the northern terminus of Lien Pu's second line of defense. It was to defend against the Qin army from the east or north. Third, the 100-mile stone wall line of defense. This line of defense was in the northwest and southeast direction, mainly from east to west. This line of defense started from Chongping Pass in the west and extended from Nangong Mountain to Yangtu Mountain, then from Golden Spring Mountain to Saddle Ravine at the border between Lingchuan and Hu Pass. It was named so because of the simple 100-mile stone wall that was built along the mountain. If Old Horse Ridge was Zhao's defensive outpost and the Dan River was the main position, then the 100-mile stone wall was Zhao's rear. This line of defense was built by Lien Pu at the northeast, which was the deepest part of Zhao's rear. It was also the last line of defense that concerned the safety of Shandong and even their headquarters in Handan. During the spring and summer of 262 BC, Lien Pu set up a defense at Old Horse Ridge while Wang Xi led his army along the Qin River to prepare for an assault. The Zhao army at Old Horse Ridge met with the Qin outpost. The defenders could not hold on and the Qin army pressed forward. Wang Xi broke through Zhao's natural stronghold of Old Horse Ridge and its defense, taking over its support and supply base, the Four Mountains Ring defense, and the Three Rivers Confluence Fortress, Guanglang City. The obstacles on the east side of the Dan River were all swept away, and they reached the west bank of the Dan River in one go, forming a situation where they were facing off against Zhao across the river. During the encounter, Lien Pu understood the Qin army's combat power and could not fight them head-on. Perhaps he could conserve his strength and wait for an opportunity to attack. Without organizing any resistance, he retreated to the east bank of the Dan River along the mountains and defended the favorable terrain. Relying on the Dan River, he used all his strength to strengthen the Dan River line of defense. At this point, Lien Po waited for the Qin army. The Qin army challenged him several times, but the Zhao army did not come out. Just like this, he made full use of the favorable terrain that he occupied and defended his position. Using the principle of not changing, he persisted for several years. The powerful and eager Wang Ci was at his wits' end, and could not cross the Dan River. The battle was in a stalemate with no clear winner or loser. The Qin army came from afar, and had a hard time resupplying their rations. They were also known as the country of tigers and wolves due to their bloodthirsty nature. In the Shandong, they could be said to be an unjust cause with little support. The Zhao army was at ease waiting for the exhausted. Their supplies could come in time, and they had the full support and cooperation of the Shandong's officials and people. This determined that the Qin army was good for a quick battle while the Zhao army was good for a drawn-out battle. The battle situation could not stay at the same level for long. It could either continue to develop according to Lien Po's strategy and counterattack to defeat or destroy the Qin army, or it could be that the Zhao court was hindering them, or the Qin court's countermeasure would cause the situation to develop in the opposite direction. The result was that King Xiaocheng of Zhao, who was young and impatient and had little military knowledge, used Lien Po's strategy of waiting for the exhausted to attack the enemy as not daring to fight. The king of Zhao thought that he would give in, and Prime Minister Fan Zhu of Qin ordered the Jin to rebel against Zhao so that Zhao Kuo could replace Lien Po to attack Qin. At the same time, the Qin heard that Ma Fuzi would be the Lord of Martial Peace, Bai Qi as the Great General and Wang Ci as the Lieutenant General. Those who dared to leak information about the Lord of Martial Peace would be executed. From then on, the 3-year stalemate between the weak Zhao and the strong Qin was finally broken. The battle situation was in Qin's favor and not Zhao's. When Ouyang Shuo arrived at Radiant Wolf City, he did not know how far Gaia had extrapolated the war to. Would it be at the stage where Lien Po and Wang Bei faced off against each other for 3 years, or would it be the final battle between Bai Qi and Zhao Kuo? To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.